Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly down the stone steps of time into a world where linen ruled the land. Riverbanks echoed with splashes and gossip, and the weight of the day's grime was gently scrubbed away under the hot Egyptian sun. You're in ancient Thebes now. You can feel it. Dry earth under your sandals, the tickle of dust in your nose, and the unmistakable waft of yesterday's leftover beer and onions clinging to your tunic. Lovely, right? This isn't some grand tale of pharaohs or pyramids. This is laundry day. Hot, inconvenient, and gloriously ordinary. And yes, you probably wouldn't survive it, not without complaining. The sun is already a bully at dawn. Your tunic itches, your arms are already sore from hauling buckets, and the pile of sweaty linen is taller than your sense of optimism. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge along a sandy alleyway between clay homes, the color of old almonds, carrying a bundle of soiled linens that smell like hot garlic, stale fish, and possibly regret. Laundry day arrives whether you're ready or not, and this morning, you are definitely not. Thebes is just waking. Roosters crow lazily, and the first rays of sunlight peek over temple roofs. You pass a neighbor. She's already hollering at her kids to stop chasing each other with reeds. Classic. Down by the Nile's edge, the river glistens like melted gold foil. That's your laundromat. No tile floors or coin-operated machines here, just slippery rocks, baskets full of tunics, and women elbow-deep in water, smacking fabric like it owes them money. A goat stares at you as you set down your basket. He seems judgmental. You ignore him. You're more worried about the smell wafting from one particularly crusty linen sheet. It could have been white once, now it's aggressively beige, with abstract patterns that might be soup stains, or worse. You squat at the river's edge, where the water laps quietly over your toes. Just upstream, a teenage boy is washing what might be his father's funeral robe, while downstream a pair of older women argue about whose son borrowed whose sandals. The river is the lifeblood of Egypt, and also the local drama hotline. You dunk a shirt into the water. It resists, ballooning like it's trying to escape. You press it under, then lift and wring. Water pours out in warm rivulets. You repeat, trying to find rhythm. Soak, scrub, smack. Soak, scrub, smack. The sound of clothes beating on stones mixes with bird calls and the hum of sleepy conversation. It's oddly soothing, like rain on a roof, if the rain involved ancient body odor and aggressive gossip. Nearby, someone mutters a quick chant, an old washer's saying meant to prevent cloth from fraying. It's not magical, but hey, neither is your technique. You reach for the soap substitute, a chunky lump of animal fat blended with natron. It smells like boiled eggs and funerals, but it does the job. You rub it across the cloth and pretend not to gag. Modern soap suddenly feels like divine intervention. There's a quiet power in all this, though. Laundry is never just laundry. It's purification, it's ritual, it's social glue and shared struggle. Even pharaohs, wrapped in gold-threaded robes, relied on people like you to keep their linens divine. A neighbor pauses her scrubbing to lean over and whisper, "Did you hear about that merchant's wife?" You haven't, but based on her tone, you definitely want to. Laundry days double as gossip festivals where secrets leak faster than rinse water. Someone shrieks a child has tossed a frog into a soap bucket. Everyone laughs except the poor girl, who now has to re-scrub her tunic. A temple priest walks by, robes spotless, probably laundered in some holier-than-thou basin. You roll your eyes. You know it took 3 acolytes and a prayer circle to get that clean. Historians still argue whether laundry duties were strictly gendered, or if men participated more often than records suggest. What's not debated is the sheer effort it took, scrubbing coarse linen under a sun so relentless, your back might write an angry letter to Ra himself. You pause to stretch. Your wrists ache. The soap paste is turning your fingertips weirdly soft, and a beetle climbs into your basket like it pays rent. Lovely. Suddenly a splash. You look up. One of the village boys has slipped and fallen into the river, landing squarely on the sacred temple towel his grandmother just finished washing. Time slows, eyes widen, the world holds its breath. Then, screaming, you help fish him out, soaked and sheepish, while his grandmother unleashes a verbal storm that would strip paint. You offer to rewash the towel. She nods, grateful, but still muttering about children these days and Ra's judgment. Later, as you hang the first few garments on a line strung between two gnarled trees, you notice something odd. A pattern. Not in the cloth, but in the routine. Everyone here moves with a sleepy choreography. Scrub, rinse, hang. Gossip, laugh, sigh. Like a sacred dance that's never written down, only passed hand to hand through soap-stained fingers. You wipe sweat from your forehead. The sun climbs higher, and with it, your pile of damp, clean clothes. You're halfway done, and already fantasizing about napping in the shade of the reeds. Your stomach growls. Someone is selling honey cakes nearby, and you swear the smell is physically pulling you across the sand. But no, discipline. You've got a tunic to scrub that looks like it was used to wrestle a donkey. Still, you let your mind wander. You imagine that maybe, in some dusty archive, a historian will one day unroll a papyrus and find your name. Not because you led an army or built a temple, but because you conquered the most stubborn wine stain on record. You shuffle back down to the riverbank, arms full of wet linen that's heavier than emotional baggage at a family reunion. The sun is climbing, of course, because Ra never takes a day off, not even for laundry. You glance at the line of women beating cloth on stone with the same enthusiasm usually reserved for smiting enemies. This is the part you've been dreading, the rinse cycle. It's not as simple as swishing fabric in the Nile and hoping for the best. First, you need to find a patch of water not already clouded with everyone else's dirt, soap, and moral failings. You walk along the bank, carefully stepping between baskets, sandals, and one snoozing cat who has claimed a laundry rock like a tiny pharaoh. Finally, you spot a relatively clear eddy. You kneel, submerge a tunic, and watch the water bloom a pale grey, like watching your past mistakes leave your life in real time. You're joined by an older woman who greets you with a nod and starts rinsing her husband's loincloths. "Used to be cleaner down here," she says, flicking a tiny fish off her washing board, before they built the new brewery upstream. Ah, yes, the brewery. Historians still argue whether Nile-adjacent beer production made the water cleaner through fermentation runoff or dirtier through, well, everything else. You're leaning toward the second theory, especially since the river now smells faintly like someone spilled warm barley soup onto a sock. The rinse is monotonous but oddly calming. You fall into rhythm, dip, swirl, lift, dip, swirl, lift. You zone out so deeply that you almost don't notice the giant lizard until it blinks. A Nile monitor, about the size of a toddler but with a far worse attitude, is eyeing your basket. You freeze. He freezes. A showdown. You slowly reach for your laundry paddle. He flicks his tongue, considers your offering of soapy tunics, then decides you're not worth the effort. He slinks away, leaving you mildly traumatized but victorious, barely. You glance around. No one else seems concerned. Nile monitors, like goats, are just part of the laundry day experience. You make a mental note, always keep one eye on your undergarments and the other on the reptile population. Further downstream, a group of children are playing. They've turned wet cloths into makeshift capes and are reenacting a battle between Horus and Seth, although it's unclear who is winning, and one of them may just be pretending to be a laundry ghost. You smile. Laundry day may be backbreaking, but it's rarely boring. A breeze kicks up, flapping your drying clothes like sails on a sleepy boat. The hot air is a blessing and a curse. It'll dry your linens faster, sure, but it also carries sand. Fine, powdery, omnipresent sand. Sand that will sneak into every fold, every hem, and possibly your soul. You remember a saying your aunt used to mutter while beating clothes against the stone. Laundry never ends, it just gets clean enough to dirty again. Deep, depressing, accurate. The wind lifts a tunic from your line. You chase it, sand squishing between your toes. It flutters like a ghost, fleeing its haunting duties, and lands on a bush full of thorns. You retrieve it, sighing. One more rip to mend. You return to your spot and find a familiar face, Hapu, the temple novice, kneeling with a gold-trimmed linen robe. It's clearly from the priesthood, maybe even touched by holy oils. He's washing it with utmost care, murmuring something under his breath that might be a purification chant, or a complaint about being assigned laundry duty again. Even Ra gets dirty, he says, nodding at your muddy robe. You shrug. Ra doesn't scrub his own tunics. Hapu snorts, the closest thing to a laugh he's allowed outside temple walls. Nearby, a merchant's wife supervises two servants who are aggressively wringing a red robe. It's dyed with imported madder root, expensive and easily ruined. One wrong twist, and it'll bleed like a drama queen's love letter. You wince for them. Laundry mistakes in high society? That's a flogging waiting to happen. Washing in the Nile is a social mosaic. Every caste, every rank, every possible robe is here. Fishermen's wives, priestly novices, shopgirls, spoiled daughters, retired soldiers, even the occasional noblewoman, although she always brings someone else to do the actual work. Status is no soap shield when the dust settles. You pause to rub your aching hands. The river has turned them pruny, your knuckles raw. The laundry paddle you've been using, really just a smooth, flat chunk of acacia wood, is starting to feel like an extension of your arm, like an ancient weapon against filth. You think about your cousin who moved to Alexandria and claimed they had a laundry servant. You imagine reclining on a terrace while someone else deals with your mustard-stained tunics. Dreamy. Then you remember that cousin cried the last time a sandstorm hit, so maybe Thebes isn't so bad. A commotion upstream draws your attention. A bundle of clothes has drifted away, floating like a bedraggled jellyfish. Its owner is wading in after it, yelling and splashing. You watch it bob toward a reed bed and wonder if the Nile just claimed another offering. Second one this week, someone mutters. The river's hungry. You've heard the stories. The Nile spirits, the current with a mind of its own. A laundry god named Kentek who judges your fabric softening technique. All part of the myth and muscle of daily life here. Eventually, you lift your basket of rinsed linen and walk up the bank toward your rooftop drying spot. Your calves burn, your fingers feel like raisins, but there's something satisfying in the weight of clean laundry, like holding proof of your survival through sun, sand, and a few semi-mythical reptiles. You pass a woman holding a bundle that smells unmistakably of beer. Not stale beer, fresh, frothy, brewery new beer. She smiles mischievously. Laundry beer, she whispers. You've earned it. You grin. Maybe you have. Maybe next rinse, you'll sip and scrub and pretend your laundry paddle is a royal scepter. You reach your rooftop, spread the linens carefully on the line, and watch the wind take hold. The garments sway, dancing lightly under the noon sun. Clean now, at least, for the next 5 hours of this dust-blown life. Below, the Nile murmurs on. You lean against the clay wall of your rooftop, catching your breath. The breeze flaps a half-dry robe against your face, lightly slapping you with the smell of soap, sweat, and whatever counts as victory in this dusty little war. You've survived the rinse. Now comes the long, hot waiting game, drying, folding, and silently praying no birds mistake your laundry for target practice. You watch the sunlight play across the fabrics. Most are made of linen, stiff, scratchy, and the only thing anyone wears if they want to keep their cool, or at least the illusion of it. Linen is Egypt's default setting. Cotton, imported and rare. Wool, banned in temples for being too impure. Silk, not unless you're a diplomat's spoiled niece. The irony is, for a civilization that mastered architecture, medicine, and celestial alignment, they still haven't invented a non-itchy shirt. You tug at your tunic and scratch your collarbone. Yep, still itchy. Linen comes from flax, and you know this because your uncle once dragged you to the edge of the fields to help harvest it. Tall, weedy plants with pale blue flowers that looked innocent until you tried pulling them up and ended up covered in tiny cuts. Then came soaking the stalks in water until they stank, pounding them with wooden mallets, and combing them into fibers with something that looked suspiciously like a torture device. Historians still argue whether linen production was centralized by temples or managed more communally by villages. Either way, by the time it reaches you, it's been through more processes than a tax audit. You pull a nearly dry sash from the line and run it through your fingers, coarse, sturdy, and somehow always wrinkles itself the moment you blink. You've heard a rumor that the royal laundresses use hot stones to press garments flat, but only after applying a special mixture of river clay and crushed lotus petals. Seems a bit much for a sash that will be drenched in sweat by noon. A voice calls out from the rooftop next door. It's Senet, the neighbor with the laugh that could start a landslide. She's holding up a tunic in triumph. Guess whose husband spilled pomegranate wine on his festival robe again? You wave back, holding up your own mystery-stained wrap. Guess who tried to use fig juice to hide a fish oil blotch? Senet winces. That's a war crime. You both laugh, leaning on your elbows across the narrow gap between buildings. This is laundry diplomacy. Bonds are built over soap crust and drying lines. No one's fancy here, not on laundry day. A few rooftops down, a boy's helping his grandmother fold linens. You watch him struggle with a stiff, ceremonial cloth, nearly wrapping himself in it like a mummy. His grandmother clucks but smiles. You smile too, that was you once, before you learned how to fold pleats so sharp they could cut judgment from a temple scribe. You go back to folding, one tunic at a time, a simple rhythm. Fold in half, then in thirds. Shake out the corners, stack carefully. It's meditative until you unfold a garment and find a lizard inside. You yelp, possibly wake a few gods, and watch it scurry off with what appears to be part of a garlic clove in its mouth. Linen's holy, you mutter after the chaos, as if trying to convince yourself it deserves this level of respect. It kind of is, though. Linen was used to wrap mummies, to clothe priests, to serve as offerings to the gods. Even the Book of the Dead mentions clean white linen as a sign of spiritual readiness. And here you are, folding it with hands that still smell faintly of goat cheese and natron. You glance down at the courtyard. Someone's drawn a large circle in the dust and placed linens around it like petals. A ritual cleansing, maybe, or a personal superstition. You've seen, stranger, like that man who swears his robes only dry evenly if he sings to them in falsetto. The sun is relentless now. The heat hums in your ears like a sleepy wasp. You fan your face with a woven reed tray and eye the last of your damp laundry, flapping gently in the breeze. One more hour, maybe two, and then it's done. Until next week, or sooner, depending on who decides to fall in the canal wearing their good sandals. You sit back and sip from a clay cup filled with slightly warm date juice, a luxury, even if it tastes like fermented raisins. From here, you can see the temple spires, the market rooftops, the shimmering line of the Nile curling lazily into the distance. Linen everywhere, on rooftops, draped from balconies, carried in baskets on heads. It weaves through Egyptian life like sand in your shoes, ubiquitous, inescapable, and mildly abrasive. Somewhere below, a flute begins to play. A lazy tune, the kind that makes your eyelids droop. A breeze picks up, fluttering your stack of folded laundry just enough to make you panic. You leap up, grabbing at corners, muttering curses that are still technically PG-13. Once your garments are secure, you sit back again. The sky has shifted, slightly less blue, slightly more golden. Evening whispers in from the west. You glance down at your hands. Raw, but satisfied. Today's sweat has paid off in piles of neatly folded linen, stiff, clean, waiting for tomorrow's wrinkles, dust, and inevitable pigeon ambush. You sigh. Only 27 more sections of this to go. You've made it to the part of laundry day where everything smells faintly like wet gravel, hot fabric, and philosophical despair. The linens are mostly dry now, and your back feels like it's been politely bludgeoned by an overly enthusiastic hippo. You should be celebrating, but no. Now it's time to deal with the soap, or rather, the ancient Egyptian excuse for it. You sit cross-legged beside your dwindling stash of the stuff, housed in a small jar that still leaks slightly around the lid. You open it and immediately wish you hadn't. The smell is an aggressive blend of cooked animal fat, ash, and something that might have once been lemon, several years ago. Soap, as you know it, doesn't exist here. There are no cheerful bars with swirly marbling, no foaming citrus miracles. What you have is a crumbly paste made from lard and natron, a naturally occurring salt harvested from dry lake beds and used for everything from deodorant to corpse preservation. It's basically powdered mummification. You're rubbing yourself clean with death salt. Historians still argue whether this early soap was an intentional invention or a happy accident discovered by someone who got too close to a funeral preparation vat while holding bacon. Either way, it works. Mostly. As long as you don't expect bubbles or pleasant memories. You scoop a little onto your palm and rub it into the underarms of a robe with the kind of intense focus usually reserved for exorcisms. The grainy grit scrapes at the fabric, leaving behind pale streaks and a smell that might be cleaner than before, but only just. A woman beside you mutters. They say the Queen's washwoman uses a soap made with crushed lotus petals. You nod solemnly. They also say the Queen bathes in milk and never sweats. Lies, she replies without hesitation. I saw her in the market once. She glistened like a roasted duck. You make a mental note to remember that phrase. Glistened like a roasted duck. Poetic. Someone walks by selling tiny cakes shaped like soap. Decorative. Completely useless. Probably a scam. You buy one anyway. Why? Because it smells vaguely like honey and optimism, and your soul needs a win. Back to scrubbing the pee. The process is strangely rhythmic. Scrape, rub, rinse. Scrape, rub, rinse. You hum a little tune under your breath, one your grandmother used to sing as she worked. It doesn't mean anything, or maybe it means everything. Some melodies don't need translations. Suddenly a shout from the river. A boy is triumphantly holding up a reed basket filled with natron. He's part of a temple crew gathering the sacred salt. You watch him trudge up the slope, proud and probably daydreaming about being a pharaoh's personal soap boy. Ambitious, slightly smelly, but ambitious. You look at your soap jar again, nearly empty. This isn't great. Soap is currency here. People trade it, hoard it, lie about how much they have stashed in clay pots behind their ovens. You once saw a woman trade a pair of earrings for a lump the size of a pomegranate, and honestly, good deal. You remember a particularly grim winter where the soap ran out. People tried substitutes, crushed olives, silt, sand. One desperate man used boiled onions. The results were memorable. But for all its smell, this lard natron mixture does its job. It eats through grease, it scours sweat marks, and when rinsed properly, it leaves behind a neutral blank slate of cloth that somehow feels cleaner than logic should allow. Of course, the smell lingers, so what do? You reach for a tiny vial of scented oil. It's not much, frankincense with a touch of myrrh. You dab a bit onto the inner fold of a clean sash, just a whisper. Enough to trick the nose into thinking the entire garment smells like heaven, or at least not like goat butter and despair. People go to great lengths for these oils. They're imported from the Red Sea coast, carried by donkey caravans and shady merchants, who sometimes swap real perfume with coloured river water. You know someone who caught a skin rash from one such scam. He still smells like swamp mint. As you scent your final garment, you pause. There's something oddly intimate about it, like whispering secrets into the fabric. A gesture meant for no one but the wearer and perhaps the gods. You stack the newly cleaned robes beside you and glance at the sun. It's dipping now, finally easing its glare. The air softens. Shadows stretch long and lazy across rooftops. A woman walks by, arms full of folded tunic. Her path kicks up a small breeze and you catch the faintest scent of cedar and honey. High-end soap. Probably someone important. Or someone trying very hard to seem important. You wonder if they ever get dirt under their fingernails, if their back aches like yours does, if their lizards steal their drying garments too. Probably not. You wipe your hands on your own tunic and immediately regret it. At least the soap's done its job. You're clean now, or clean enough. Tomorrow it'll all start again. Dust, sweat, spills. Life, basically. And you'll be back here with your bucket and your lard jar, pretending it doesn't smell like sad bacon. You look around at the other laundry warriors. Some are still scrubbing. Others are fanning their faces with folded cloth. One has fallen asleep upright against a basket, snoring gently with a bar of soap balanced on her knee. You smile. There's something noble in all this. If you squint hard enough and don't breathe through your nose. You gather your tools, rinse the soapstones, reseal the jar, and tuck your honey-scented fake soap cake into a pouch like a treasure. Down in the courtyard, a child begins singing the first notes of a laundry song, a simple, looping melody. You hum along. Even if it never gets easier, at least it stays familiar. You're back at the river's edge again, not for rinsing this time, but for drama. Laundry day is, by its very nature, communal, which means you are now deeply entangled in something you never signed up for. Public basin politics. You step around a woman gesturing wildly with a damp sash in one hand and a look of betrayal in her eyes. "She took my stone," she barks, pointing at another washer who is determinedly pretending not to hear her. You don't get involved, you've learned. Basin disputes are older than the pyramids and just as impossible to resolve. Instead, you find a free spot near a shallow groove in the limestone, still warm from the last occupant's thighs. You plop down, careful not to squish the clean cloth on your lap, and start refolding. Just a few minutes of calm before someone else's domestic argument spills into your bucket. The public washing basins are carved right into the river's embankments, ancient stone channels rubbed smooth by centuries of hands, heels, and tears. They're practical, sacred, and unfortunately excellent at amplifying every conversation within a 15-cubit radius. You hear everything, a woman describing in detail how her husband forgot their anniversary for the 3rd year in a row, a novice priest mumbling a chant over a stubborn curry stain, and a girl asking the universe loudly why her tunic smells like donkey again. You settle in. This is the heart of Laundry Day, the social centre. No one here is anonymous. The basins hold water, but they also hold stories. You can learn more in 30 minutes of quiet listening than you ever could in a week of market gossip. Across the basin, a teenage boy is folding robes with exaggerated flair. His mother swats him with a wet sash every time he flubs a crease. "You want to join the Temple Laundry Guild?" she shouts. "Fold like your life depends on it." He salutes her with a grin and keeps going. You smirk. That boy might actually have a shot. The Temple Laundry Guild is no joke. They're the elite. They wash the linens for the gods, or at least the priests who speak for them. Robes bleached in moonlight, rinsed with rosewater, and ironed with smooth alabaster stones that are rumoured to be blessed. They say the guild members even wear ceremonial aprons with gold-threaded sashes. You wouldn't know, you've never been invited. Historians still argue whether these temple laundries operated like religious orders or bureaucratic institutions. Either way, they were respected, revered even, which is hilarious if you think about it. Divine laundry, the holiest of folds. You snap out of your reverie when a girl next to you asks, "Can you pass the paddle?" You do. She thanks you with a polite nod and returns to whacking her brother's tunic with the kind of vengeance that suggests he borrowed it without asking. Again, you realize she's got a small ceramic oil lamp resting on a cloth by her side, lit. It's not even sunset yet, you squint. Ritual cleansing, maybe? Or maybe she just likes working with a bit of flame around. Bold choice with all the linen nearby. Downstream, 2 older women lean over their basin, murmuring to each other in a way that's half memory, half complaint. "In my day, we didn't need special soaps," one says. "Just grit and elbow grease," the other grunts. "And ash. Don't forget the ash." You wonder if they're remembering laundry days from 40 years ago or 4,000. In Egypt, it's hard to tell. You look down at your own basin. The water is cloudy now, silvery with sediment, tiny threads of lint floating lazily on the surface. You tip it slightly, letting the murk spill back into the Nile, then refill it with a fresher scoop. A fish wiggles nearby. You nod at it like a colleague. Someone nearby starts singing, a soft, repetitive tune meant to match the rhythm of scrubbing. Others join in. No harmony, just overlapping voices in slightly different keys. It shouldn't work, but it does. It wraps around you like a blanket. For a moment, the world simplifies. You close your eyes and breathe. The scent of warm stone, wet cloth, and something floral. Maybe someone's perfume soap is doing its best. A splash. Your eyes snap open. Someone's sandal just flew into your basin. You look up to see a child grinning sheepishly. "Sorry," he says, not very sorry. His mother grabs him by the wrist and hauls him away, mumbling about what happens to boys who ruin sacred basins. You fish the sandal out and wring it. Still better than that time someone dropped a fish head in your bucket. That was not a good rinse. Later, as the crowd thins and the sun begins to tip westward, you find yourself alone at your basin. The water is still. The stone beneath your fingers feels cool now. You touch the grooves worn deep by generations of hands. You wonder who else has sat here, who cried here, who scrubbed blood out of cloth or ink or wine, who folded linen with trembling fingers for a child's funeral, who smoothed creases for a wedding robe. The basins remember, even if they don't talk. You finish your last fold, tucking the final edge of fabric into a neat square. The pile beside you is tall and clean and slightly scented, your proud little pyramid of effort. You stand slowly, groaning a bit. Your knees have aged 20 years in one afternoon. You stretch, rub your lower back, and then lift your laundry like it's your personal offering to the gods of fabric and fortitude. As you walk away, you pass a woman whispering over her robes. "May these stay clean till morning," she says. You murmur, "Unlikely," and keep walking. But it's the thought that counts, your home, or at least what passes for home on laundry day. A shaded corner of your courtyard where drying lines zigzag like spiderwebs made by a slightly drunk architect. You ease the basket down, stretch your arms overhead until your shoulders pop, and let out a sigh so deep it could be mistaken for a priestly chant. Your neighbour's goat bleats in reply. Rude. Now comes the most satisfying part, sorting the linens. This is where you get to pretend you're someone important, maybe a palace steward assigning robes to royal scribes, or a merchant inspecting silks before a long journey south. You lift each item, fold it sharply, and stack it with the care of someone who absolutely will not tolerate wrinkled corners. But today, as you fold a robe with a faint oil stain you just couldn't conquer, you start noticing something else. The way different linens are made, the texture, the seams, the edges finished with delicate stitchwork, or in some cases, no stitchwork at all, just raw cloth knotted and left to fray. Because here's the truth, not all laundry is created equal. You remember earlier in the day, at the river, how some folks arrived with tiny bundles of coarse flax wraps, and others with huge armloads of embroidered tunics, pleated loincloths, and what looked like temple flags. The difference? Class, status, and, let's be honest, elbow grease outsourcing. Some people in Egypt never wash their own clothes. They hire it out to slaves, servants, or desperate neighbors looking to trade for bread. A good laundress can command food, gossip, even mild protection in exchange for clean linen. The very poor, they wash their few garments in silence with no soap and little hope and hang them to dry over branches or rocks while watching carefully for thieves or sandstorms, or both. Then there's you, somewhere in the middle. You don't have slaves, you don't have a golden laundry paddle, but you've got your hands, your soap jar, and a pretty decent shoulder muscle from years of river stone scrubbing. Historians still argue whether laundry duties in Egypt were assigned strictly along class lines or if there was more fluidity depending on household structure. You'd guess it's both. Sometimes roles bend, sometimes laundry is just laundry. Other times it's a performance. You shake out a tunic that's obviously seen better days, The neck hole is stretched, the colour's gone from sun-bleached to sun-beaten, and the hemline looks like it had a run-in with a chariot wheel. Still you fold it lovingly, it's clean, it's survived. A rustling to your left. You glance over. A servant girl from the house next door is hanging her master's linens with robotic precision. Every fold exact, every peg placed just so. Her face is blank, efficient. You watch for a moment, wondering if she ever laughs during laundry, or sings, or throws soap at her siblings. Probably not. You look down at your own pile and realize your favorite sash is missing. Panic. You retrace your steps in your mind. River, basin, rooftop. Did it blow away? Was it stolen? Is a goose wearing it now like a fashion statement? You rush back to the courtyard gate, eyes scanning rooftops for the flutter of golden embroidery. You like that sash. It was your best one. The one with the little crescent moon stitched in red thread by your cousin as a wedding gift. Never used for a wedding, of course, but good for festival days and particularly dramatic errands. Then you spot it, hanging from your neighbour's laundry line, very much not where you left it. You walk over, knock politely, and point. "Hi, that's mine." The neighbour squints. "Is it? I thought it was my niece's. She doesn't remember either. Wants to be a harpist, useless with laundry." She hands it back with a shrug, no apology, and you thank her through a tight smile. Crisis averted. But now your sash smells faintly of their cooking oil. You return to your sorting and try not to hold a grudge. By now, the shadows are growing longer, spilling across the courtyard like dark linen themselves. You pull down the last few garments from the linings, still warm from the sun, still scented faintly with natron and earth. You pause with one tunic still in your hands. It belonged to your uncle, the one who disappeared on a trade route to Kush 5 years ago. His clothes are still here, washed out of habit, or memory, or refusal. You fold it carefully, pressing your palm flat over the chest as if smoothing time itself. In the distance, a priest chants the first call of evening. A few rooftops over, a woman claps her hands and calls her children in. The day is slowing, unwrapping itself gently. You sit beside your stack, watching the last of the sunlight filter through your drying lines. The cloth glows amber. It's beautiful, in a quiet, mundane way. Sacred in its own right. You think of the women in temples, kneeling on polished floors, washing the divine linens with special oils and whispered prayers. You wonder if they complain about back pain too. Probably. Even gods can't save you from laundry elbow. You lean back, hands resting on the stone, and let out a breath you didn't know you'd been holding. Around you, the world is still. A cat pads silently across a roof. A soft gust stirs a tunic on the line, just enough to make it dance. You close your eyes. Clean laundry, sorted, folded, scented, and safe. Until the next goat, dust storm, or temple ritual ruins everything. But for now it's enough. You wake the next morning to the familiar sound of a linen sheet slapping against your window like it's trying to escape. You sit up slowly, joints groaning, neck creaking, and catch a whiff of something suspicious. Not quite unwashed, not quite burned toast. You sniff your tunic. It's clean, miraculously. The scent is coming from the alleyway. You stumble outside, rubbing sleep from your eyes, and find that someone's knocked over a soap jar. The contents have leaked into the dust, forming a sort of gooey paste that 2 cats are now rolling in like it's a spa treatment. You sigh. Laundry day never really ends. It just mutates into new forms of mischief. You scoop up the jar, you salvage what you can, and watch one cat dash away with a damp paw print on its forehead. You consider warning its owner, then decide they'll figure it out when their furniture starts smelling like natron and mackerel. Today's chore? The rooftop line check. You climb the narrow stairs and find half your linens perfectly folded and dry, and half redampened by dew and poor timing. The wind last night was just lively enough to unclip a few garments and toss them across the floor like some linen poltergeist with a passive-aggressive streak. You gather them up, shake out the wrinkles, and start rehanging. This is where you really start to notice the tools of the trade, not just the clothespins, small carved pegs, or in your case, a clever setup involving string and bits of bent copper. But everything else, baskets, paddles, soap jars, even the humble water jug, each item has a story, a memory, a little tragedy. Take your laundry paddle, for instance, flat acacia wood, stained from 1,000 washes and slightly curved from being left too long in the sun that one time. It was your mother's before you. You remember watching her hold it like a scepter, whacking the filth out of tunics while humming a song about a donkey that refused to wear trousers. You once tried making a new paddle yourself. Fresh wood, smooth edges, symmetrical. It cracked on the third wash. Lesson learned, old tools know the rhythm. They're seasoned, like a good frying pan or a well-broken-in lye. There's also the pestle, a rounded chunk of polished stone that looks more like something a pharaoh's cook might use to mash chickpeas. But here, it's for beating cloth. You hold it in both hands and thump away until the linen surrenders. And let's not forget your washboard, if you can call it that. It's technically a piece of reused temple tile, probably chipped off during renovations, that has just enough ridges to make scrubbing effective, and just enough divine association to keep you hopeful it won't shatter mid-lather. Historians still debate whether ancient Egyptian laundresses used specific laundry kits, or if the tools were just whatever was lying around and slightly less cursed than average. From where you're standing, barefoot, juggling pegs and flapping sleeves, it's clearly the latter. You've also tried innovations. A few weeks ago you saw a merchant in the market selling a new kind of wash basket, oval, shallow, supposedly imported from the Levant. Cuts laundry time in half, he promised. You bought one. It collapsed the moment you poured water in. Now it's a plant pot. Still you learn. A good basket must be tightly woven. Too loose, and the water seeps out like gossip at a naming ceremony. Too tight, and it never drains, turning your garments into soup. You look down at your own basket, medium-sized, sturdy, with a handle wrapped in old linen strips for comfort. It creaks but holds like most people you know. Nearby you hear the thunk-thunk of another laundress pounding garments on a flat stone slab. She's got 2 paddles going, alternating hands like she's in a percussion band. You've seen her before. Her nickname is Double-Handed Mary. She once knocked a goose unconscious with a flick of the wrist. You respect her. You swap a few tools with her. She lends you a stronger peg. You trade a bit of scented oil. It's an unspoken code. Laundry solidarity. You help each other out because no one else will. And because, let's be honest, no one wants to face a laundry emergency alone. You remember one such emergency. 3 summers ago, a sudden dust storm blew through Thebes like an angry librarian. Linens flew, buckets overturned, soap melted. One woman lost her entire festival outfit, gone like it had never existed. For days afterward, people found scraps of embroidered cloth hanging from palm trees and woven into bird nests. You still have a bit of it tucked in your wash basket. A charm, maybe, or a reminder. The wind picks up now, playfully tugging at your drying lines. You tighten a few knots, check the pegs, and squat down beside your basket to take stock. You've got the essentials: 2 spare soap lumps, 3 washcloths, 1 stained with beet juice. No hope there. A broken peg you still refuse to throw away. A spare paddle you once carved from driftwood, useless but sentimental. 1 very old prayer scroll tucked into a secret pocket, just in case. Laundry, for you, is ritual. Not just in the cleanse the body sense, but in the way you repeat tests at steps, handle tools, tell stories through each motion. It's choreography, it's meditation. It's also exhausting. You flop backward onto the still, warm rooftop tiles, eyes half shut, arms flung wide. Above you, linen dances in the wind, cream and off-white against the blue sky, some streaked with orange, others with faint indigo from temple dyes. You trace patterns with your eyes. 1 robe flaps like a flag, a sash twists like a snake, a child's tunic spins on the line like it's playing. And for a moment, just a moment, it's beautiful. All of it, the tools, the mess, the mistakes, the endless cycle of wash, dry, fold, repeat. You close your eyes and let the wind hum, lullabies through the lines. You wake from your rooftop daydream with a start, not because of the wind, not because of a shout, but because your drying robe just slapped you square in the face again. It's not even apologetic about it. Linen never is. It flaps there on the line like a smug flag of domestic tyranny, daring you to unclip it. You oblige, yanking the robe free and folding it slowly, deliberately, as if teaching it a lesson. It crumples obediently in your hands, the warmth of the sun still trapped inside its fibers. For now, it's tame. But just as you start to fold the next item, a wind gust stronger than necessary kicks up from the west. The desert has decided it's time to play. You know this wind. You've smelled it before. Dry, heavy, hot, like the breath of a god with hay fever. It doesn't whistle, it growls. The linen on your lines begins to thrash. Flap, flap, thwap. Pins creak, rope stretches. One sash takes flight. You grab at it too late. It's already somersaulting across the courtyard like a smug, scented serpent. And now you have a choice. Chase it or protect what's still clipped down. You leap into action, one hand snatching a basket, the other slamming pegs tighter onto collars and sleeves like you're pinning wings on sleepy birds. The wind roars louder, now flinging tiny pellets of sand into your eyes. You squint, spit dust, and shield your pile like it's made of gold. Below in the alley, a woman screams about her linens flying off the roof. You peer over the edge. Sure enough, a sheer white underdress is dancing down the street like it just escaped a temple vow. This is the problem with desert wind. You can scrub a tunic for 2 hours, dry it for 3, and in 2 seconds it's airborne, filthy, and emotionally unavailable. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians had formal wind-drying techniques, weighted hems, windproof terraces, double peg systems. Some temple scrolls mention drying garments inside clay-walled chambers with filtered airflow. But for villagers like you, it's always been rope, pins, prayer, and reflexes. You gather the last of your linens, arms overflowing, and duck into the doorway just as another gust rattles the thatch roof. Inside it's darker, cooler, safe. Your robes lie in a tangled heap, slightly creased but blessedly dust-free. You collapse beside them, pressing your forehead against the stack like a weary general returning from battle. That's when you remember the storm's not over. You peek outside, sand now dances in spirals, whipped into little devils that skitter across rooftops and slam into walls. The sky's taken on that strange yellow-brown color that means don't bother trying anything productive. You're stuck. And so is everyone else. From your doorway, you can hear the telltale sounds of neighborly despair, shouts, curses, panicked flapping. A chorus of voices raised not in prayer, but in collective linen-based agony. You smile despite yourself. A woman across the way drags a wet sheet back up onto her line, hair wild, mouth muttering threats to the wind itself. Another neighbor is using a clay pot lid as a shield, crawling after what you think is a tablecloth now wrapped around a cactus. You've seen this before. Haboobs, sand squalls. The wind giveth, and the wind definitely taketh away. The courtyard fills with more noise, terracotta rattling, lines snapping, a child yelling, "My underpants!" with all the sorrow of a tragic myth. You retreat fully indoors and begin the post-wind inspection. Each linen item gets a once-over. Most are fine. A few are suspiciously grittier than they were 30 minutes ago. One has an imprint of a roof tile. That's new. You pull out a brush, horsehair, short-bristled, carved with a lotus at the handle, and start gently cleaning the worst of the sand from the creases. The motion is slow, repetitive. Scratch, shake, fold. Scratch, shake, fold. You try not to think about how much sand is now inside your own tunic. It's a given. You're part desert now. One of your tunics, sadly, is a casualty. The good one, the one you wore for that festival where the bread stall caught fire and everyone blamed the fishmonger. It's torn at the hem, dust-drenched, and smells faintly like sunburnt natron. You set it aside, maybe for patching, or retirement, or reincarnation as a cleaning rag. The wind howls louder for a moment, then fades. You listen. Stillness, then birdsong. You step outside again, cautiously. The sky has cleared to a hazy pale blue. The worst is over. The alley is littered with leaves, feathers, broken pins, and the occasional sock-shaped ghost fluttering in defeat. Laundry, still fluttering in spots, now sags with the weight of post-storm survival. You begin the recovery effort, joining your neighbors in a silent truce. No one talks, no one jokes. You just gather what the wind spared, smooth what it crumpled, and quietly mourn what it stole. A boy down the street waves a tunic like a victory flag. It's not his. No one stops him. You gather your favorite robe. It survived, miraculously, and hold it to your chest. Still warm, still clean. You smooth its creases with both palms, offering a quiet apology for every time you considered setting it on fire during past washings. Later, as the courtyard resets, brooms sweeping, ropes retying, you climb back to your rooftop with a basket that's lighter than before but more precious somehow. Each surviving garment goes back on the line carefully, reverently, like hanging prayers. You sit beside them just for a minute, watching the linen sway gently now, no longer in danger, just breathing. And for the first time all day, so do you. You wake the next morning to find a wooden paddle lying beside your basket that doesn't belong to you. It's heavier than yours, carved with tiny chevron markings along the handle, and still wet from someone else's rinse cycle. You turn it over in your hands, intrigued. This isn't just any paddle, it's a proper laundry tool, carefully shaped, worn in just the right places. Someone loved this paddle. You peer over your courtyard wall and call out, "Anyone missing something?" A woman a few rooftops over squints at you. "What is it?" You hold it aloft. She frowns. "Not mine. Mine's cracked and smells like fermented barley. That one looks fancy." You nod slowly. It does look fancy, and this is how it begins. The laundry tools you wish you didn't need, because, let's be honest, laundry in ancient Egypt is an Olympic sport with a tool set that looks like it came from a temple, a butcher shop, and someone's abandoned carpentry shed. You start laying them out. Your old paddle, your backup paddle, the driftwood one, slightly cursed, your pestle stone, half a statue head probably, the broken soap press, 2 jars with crusty rims, a folding brush, and the mysterious new paddle that seems far too competent to be yours. You add a splintered clothes peg that looks like it survived a civil war, and your trusty scraping tile, once part of a temple mosaic, now demoted to scrubbing fish sauce out of tunics. The tools of the trade. You reach for your brush. The bristles are fraying, the handle's chipped, but it still fits in your palm like a handshake from someone who understands your pain. You remember how your aunt used to say, "If you're going to live by the Nile, you'd better learn how to scrub like the gods are watching." Then she'd beat a pair of socks against a rock with such fury that nearby crocodiles would retreat in shame. Historians still argue whether there was a standard issue for laundry equipment or if every household simply made do. Some temple records mention official laundry kits for priestesses, ivory combs, alabaster rinse bowls, even special copper shears for trimming frayed edges. But you've got a rock and a prayer. You try the new paddle on a dry wrap. It glides smoothly, powerful, balanced. This thing is dangerous. You hear footsteps behind you. It's Kibi, the linen merchant's daughter. "That's mine," she says, pointing at the paddle. You hand it over reluctantly, like returning a borrowed treasure. She smiles. "You can use it today if you want. I've got 3. 3? You consider filing this as a formal grievance with the Linen Guild. Instead, you nod graciously. "Thanks. I'll return it dust-free." She shrugs. "It would be a first." Rude, but fair. You set up for another day of washing, a fresh batch, stains of unknown origin, wrinkled ceremonial skirts that look like they were used as tablecloths during a goat's birthday party. You soak a tunic in warm river water and get to work. This time, you notice the difference. The new paddle cuts through grime like a knife through soft cheese. Your usual paddle, you might as well be yelling at the fabric. But this is control, precision, elegance. Your Michelangelo, and the tunic is your fresco. Well, a smelly fresco. Someone nearby chuckles. "You look like you're fighting a very clean war." You glance up. It's your neighbor, arms elbow deep in a basin, wielding 2 pestles at once. She's gone full twin combat mode on a pair of linen trousers. Laundry is combat, you reply. She nods solemnly. And honor must be preserved. You both continue pounding. Around you, the tools clatter like percussion instruments. Wooden pegs, stone beaters, metal hooks used to pull heavy wet cloth from boiling rinse pots. Someone drops a jug and curses creatively, using a phrase you're not sure Ra would approve of. And then there's the starch stick. Ah, yes, the starch stick. It's a gnarled chunk of acacia dipped in a mix of grain paste and salt, meant to be dragged along the edges of pleated garments to keep them stiff and crisp. You found one once at a market stall and bought it for 2 onions and a flint shard. Best trade of your life. You apply it to a temple apron, carefully refolding the creases so sharp they could double as eyebrow razors. One misstep and the whole garment goes limp, and then you've got to start over. No pressure. Next, the oilcloth. You lay a strip of perfumed fabric over a freshly washed tunic and press gently with your palm. The scent, cinnamon, cardamom, a hint of old sandalwood, transfers just enough to mask the residual smelled like a market stall in July vibe. You roll the tunic and set it aside. Mission accomplished. Your neighbor pauses beside you. You always use that oilcloth? Only for the special ones. She smirks. Washing someone fancy? You shrug. No, just want to feel like I am. She claps you on the back, which feels less like support and more like being struck with a damp rug. Later that day, you pass by the temple wall and see the high priest's robes fluttering on their private line. Perfectly white, not a wrinkle. Probably dried with phoenix feathers and smugness. You pause. Then you spot something, a clothes peg on the ground, gold-tipped, slightly curved, engraved. You pick it up and tuck it into your pocket, not to steal, just to hold, just to remember that even the gods use tools, and sometimes even they drop them. The temple courtyard smells like soap, sandalwood, and mild fear. You're not supposed to be here, not really, but you've been called in, an emergency. Someone dropped a holy tunic in goat dung, and now the gods are upset, the priests are sweating, and you, of all people, have been asked to scrub sacred linen, like your afterlife depends on it. You walk slowly beneath towering stone columns carved with lotus blossoms and stories of gods who, you imagine, never did their own laundry. The marble floor gleams, recently rinsed. Incense curls through the air like judgment in smoke form. You try not to look too mortal. A young acolyte meets you at the inner gate. He's clutching a bundle of cloth like it contains Pharaoh's final will and a live scorpion. It's this one, he whispers, handing it over like a curse. You peek inside. Yep, that's goat dung, all right. Possibly enhanced by fear sweat and ceremonial wine. You nod professionally. I've seen worse. He doesn't look convinced. You're led to the temple's private washing chamber, a sun-drenched room with polished stone basins, copper buckets, and a soft breeze filtered through linen curtains. You've never washed here before. This is sacred ground. Laundry here isn't just clean, it's pure. Historians still argue whether these temple laundry rites were more symbolic than practical, or if they truly believed that divine energy could be sullied by wine stains and goat debris. But in a culture where cleanliness and holiness were nearly identical, these robes mattered. Every fiber, every fold, a vessel for the divine. You place the tunic into a shallow bowl filled with scented water, rose and myrrh by the smell of it. You don't scrub, not yet. First, you whisper, not a prayer exactly, just a tone of apology and promise, a ritual all your own. Then you begin. You dab, gently, scoop warm water, and let it seep through the stain. Not too much agitation. This cloth is thinner than breath, woven tighter than secrets. You reach for the temple soap, a finer version of yours, white, crumbly, laced with olive oil and lotus. It smells like a festival and costs more than your sandals. You rub just a little along the soiled threads. The cloth darkens briefly. You swirl, press, rinse, slow, reverent, like you're cleaning the skin of a sleeping god. There's a rhythm to it now. Dab, rinse, fold, press. You forget you're in a temple. You forget the acolyte watching you from the corner like you might burst into flames. You forget about goats and gossip and dust storms. It's just you and the robe. You turn it over and notice something hidden. Tiny embroidery along the hem. Just a few red stitches, a symbol. A bird, a sun, you're not sure. But it wasn't part of the design. Someone added it later, maybe the person who wove the cloth. Maybe someone who wore it, a secret, sewn in silence. You smile, even sacred robes have stories. Eventually the stain lifts, the cloth smells like heaven again. You lift it carefully, fingers spread wide so it doesn't crumple, and lay it on the drying platform. Smooth stone, warmed by filtered sun. Not rope, not pegs, just heat, silence, and time. You step back, and the acolyte exhales for the first time in 10 minutes. "Do I bow?" he asks, glancing at the robe. You shrug. "Up to you. I usually offer it a snack." He doesn't laugh, but he's too relieved to care. You gather your tools, wiping the paddle clean on a square of cloth, finer than anything in your wardrobe. You shouldn't take it. But you do, just a corner, just enough to remember. As you leave the temple grounds, you pass a scribe who's busy copying a list of priestly duties onto a scroll. Laundry is on it. Third line just after light incense and before recite protective hymns. You're in good company. Back outside, the sun is harsher. The noise is louder. You've returned to the world of smudges and smells. But something's shifted. You've washed a robe that touched the inner sanctum. You've handled linen meant only for gods. You walk taller, until a pigeon poops on your shoulder. Balance restored. You swing by your neighbor's house on the way home. She's boiling her laundry in a large copper pot over an open fire. An old method. Harsh on fabric, but great for purging stubborn sins. "I heard you went to the temple," she calls. You nod. She squints at your shoulder. "Bird got you?" You nod again. She grins. "Happens to all the holy ones?" Later that night, you check the sacred corner of cloth you tucked into your pouch. Still there, still clean. You smooth it out, press it flat, and hide it beneath your mattress like a charm. Maybe it's just linen, maybe it's a prayer. The morning begins with a sigh, not yours this time, but from the elderly man who lives 2 doors down. He's discovered that someone, somehow, hung their undergarments on his drying post. Again. You sip your barely cool barley tea and listen as he launches into a muttering monologue about youths today and disrespectful breaches. It's the soundtrack of your morning, and you'd honestly miss it if it ever stopped. Your own laundry's done for now, folded, stacked, and resting in neat little towers like linen monuments to your endurance. You could rest, but you won't, because today something more important than cleanliness is at stake. Your application to the Royal Laundry Guild is under review. Well, application is a generous word. You've been doing unofficial favors for one of the lower scribes, quietly laundering his ink-stained robes without reporting the quality of papyrus stains to his superiors. In exchange, he's promised to slip your name into the candidate list for Pharaoh's appointed linen smoothers. A lofty title, better tools, better soap, fewer goats. You'd be one of the chosen few who handle royal cloth, not just temple garments, but robes of court officials, concubines' veils, and possibly even the pharaoh's personal pillowcases. You're trying not to get your hopes up, but it's hard. You practice folding your best robe for the 5th time this morning, placing it carefully in a reed-lined basket filled with clean straw and a single lotus petal. Presentation matters. You've heard stories about the Royal Laundry Guild, a team of maybe a dozen specialists, each with a specific task. One just folds. One only bleaches. One is rumored to whisper affirmations to the cloth before sunrise. You're not sure how much of that is true, but you respect the hustle. Historians still argue whether this elite group was ceremonial or genuinely functional. Some inscriptions suggest their names were recorded in temple archives, while others claim they were just glorified servants who got lucky with job titles. You don't care. You'd mop floors if it meant access to the royal soap stash. Your friend Paddy arrives before noon, holding an official-looking scroll and a grin that makes you nervous. "They want a trial," he says, breathless. "Today." You drop the basket. "Today?" he nods. "One robe, one test. They want to see if you can clean this." He produces the test garment, a formal linen robe, deeply pleated, embroidered at the hem, and absolutely drenched in something that smells suspiciously like date wine and panic. "What happened to it?" He shrugs. "Rumors say a chariot race got out of hand. One of the princesses may have spilled an amphora." "Of course she did. You set up immediately." Your courtyard becomes a war room. Soap, paddles, warmed rinse water, the starch stick. You light a small incense cone, not for the gods, but for your nerves. The robe lies before you like a sleeping swan that fell into a fruit cart. You begin with the inner hem, where stains tend to gather unnoticed. Gently, so gently, you work in the soap. Today you're using the good stuff, hoarded for months. You dab with a cloth soaked in natron and lemon balm extract. You murmur soothing nonsense to the fabric, because why not? Next, the pleats. You use the heated folding stone, flat, smooth, slightly concave. You've practiced this for years on festival tunics. Today it matters more. Each pleat has to be crisp but not stiff, aligned but soft, regal, not rigid. The robe begins to revive, the date wine lifts, the embroidery gleams. You press the final fold, breathe out and set it on your best drying mat. Paddy watches, mouth open. "You're a witch," he says. You smile. "A very clean one." Later, as the sun begins to fall, a servant of the Royal Laundry Guild arrives, older, sharp-eyed, with fingers stained faintly from decades of soap and dye. She says nothing at first, only circles the robe, examining the folds like a hawk eyeing prey. She lifts the edge of the hem, sniffs, flicks a thread back into place. Then she looks at you and says simply, "It will do." It will do. You float for the rest of the evening. The guild hasn't promised anything yet, but they're watching now. You're on their map. You're not just the girl with the stubborn sash and a half-broken paddle. You're a contender, a linen whisperer. As night falls, you climb to the rooftop with your regular basket. You hang a few cloths, not because they need drying, but because the motion soothes you. Above, the stars prick through the velvet sky. Below, someone sings a laundry song in the dark, soft and slow. You lean back on your elbows and watch your linen sway gently in the breeze, no longer tools but trophies. Tomorrow, the stains will return. The goats will trip over your lines. The soap will run out, but not tonight. Tonight, you belong to the robe. You wake the next day with the lingering scent of lotus oil in your hair and just enough pride in your chest to make you suspicious something terrible is about to happen. That's how it usually works. One small triumph followed by a goat falling into your rinse basin. Today the courtyard is filled with debate. Not just about chores or whose child stole whose peg this time, but something much more serious, scented oil. You arrive in the middle of it, a circle of washerwomen huddled around a small clay pot like it holds divine secrets. One dips a reed stick into the mixture and waves it under her nose, recoiling instantly. "Too much frankincense," she declares. "Not enough myrrh," another insists. "Is that fish oil?" a third says, horrified. You inch closer. This isn't just idle sniffing. This is a decision-making moment. Someone is preparing to launder ceremonial linen for a betrothal feast, and the scented oil being added to the final rinse must be perfect. Not nice, not pleasant, perfect. Because in Egyptian culture, smell isn't just accessory, it's identity. You are what you wear, yes, but more importantly, you are what your clothes smell like. Historians still argue whether perfuming laundry was widespread or reserved for the elite. Temple texts mention aromatic rinses made from cinnamon bark, cardamom, and blue lotus, reserved for priests, brides, and high-ranking scribes. But oral tradition hints that even common folk added crushed mint or sweetgrass when they could, if only to feel a little less like a sun-baked sock. You've dabbled before, an experimental rinse with lemon peel and crushed fig that made your tunic smell like dessert for 3 days, a triumph, if slightly distracting. But this group, this is another level. The woman in charge today is old, sharp-eyed, and terrifying. Her name is Tabby. She once perfumed a festival robe so perfectly it caused a minor street riot. She now speaks with the slow certainty of someone who's always right. "This one's too sharp," she says, sniffing the oil blend again. "Too many top notes, no earth." You nod as if you understand perfume chemistry. You don't. You still confuse cedarwood and cinnamon half the time, but you've learned to trust your nose, and more importantly, her nose. Tabby hands you the pot. You try. Tell me what's missing. You freeze. All eyes are on you, the newest almost candidate for the Royal Laundry Guild. Your opinion matters now. Terrifying. You take a cautious sniff. It smells like a spice stall during a sandstorm, a hint of smoke, a bite of bitter, and yes, something oily underneath that doesn't belong. "Too heavy," you say. "Maybe cut it with rose water?" Tabby stares at you. Then she nods. You breathe again. The group murmurs approval. Someone hands you a jug of rose water so pure it probably cost 3 chickens in a secret. You add just a few drops, stir, and pass it back. Tabby dips her reed, inhales, and grunts. Acceptable. And that's basically a standing ovation. With the blend approved, the ritual begins. The bride's robe is already clean, washed the day before with extra care and a quiet prayer. Today is about transformation, not dirt removal, sanctification. The robe is lowered gently into a basin filled with cool water, then the scented oil is poured slowly over it like a blessing. The smell rises in waves, soft floral, warm resin, and a hint of spice. It fills the courtyard like music you can wear. Everyone steps back. Even the neighborhood cat pauses to sniff. You're handed the honor of lifting the robe from the water. Your hands shake just a little. It's slippery now, silkier somehow, despite being linen. You wring it carefully, lay it flat on a smooth reed mat, and begin the slow process of patting it dry with clean cloths. No sun drying today. The oils would burn off. This one must dry softly. As you work, you hear the women begin to talk, not loudly, just naturally. About other weddings, other robes, the time someone mixed too much cinnamon and made a groom sneeze through his vows, the time a jealous cousin accidentally spilled fish stock in the rinse tub, the time the bride's robe was so perfectly scented that the priest forgot his speech and just stood there sniffing for 10 full seconds. You laugh along because now you're part of it. Not just the folding, the scrubbing, the war on stains. But this, the magic part. The moment when clean cloth becomes something sacred. Something scented, softened, whispered into, and handed off for a new life. Later that evening, you return home with the scent still clinging to your fingers. You can't stop sniffing them. It's ridiculous and wonderful. You sit on your rooftop and lay out your own best sash, just to see what you can do. You mix your last bit of lotus oil with a touch of myrrh and 1 secret drop of rosewater. Then you dab the mixture onto the sash, fold it tightly, and press it under a warm stone. Tomorrow you'll open it and see what you've made. Tonight you breathe it in and smile. You're crouched beside a laundry basin before the sun's fully up, half awake, and already soaked through with Nile mist. Why? Because today you've been assigned the most noble of tasks, training the neighborhood children in the ancient and sacred art of laundry. You do not remember volunteering. You suspect someone lied about your availability. Possibly your aunt. 6 small pairs of eyes blink up at you, holding tiny wet cloths in fists, still sticky with breakfast. 1 child is already covered in soap. Another is chewing on a wooden peg like it's a snack. You close your eyes and offer a brief plea to Maat, goddess of cosmic balance, that you don't lose anyone to the river before midday. Okay, you sigh. Lesson 1. The soap is not food. The peg chewer frowns. Training child helpers in laundry is an old tradition. Historians still argue whether it was a method of early skill building or just a practical way to keep tiny hands busy and out of trouble. You suspect it's both. These kids are energetic enough to power a barge if harnessed correctly. You hand out tasks. You soak these tunics. You rinse gently, not with your whole body. No, seriously, stop eating the soap. The group spreads out around the basin like tiny, disorganized birds. The girl assigned to rinsing ends up splashing more water on her skirt than on the clothes. One of the boys invents a new game called Linen Toss, which involves flinging damp wraps into a tree. You intercept it mid-flight. No tossing. We do not toss tunics. We treat them with reverence. But what if they're ugly? He says. Especially then. You guide them, step by step, demonstrating how to scrub without tearing, how to hold the cloth so the water drains smoothly, how to check for hidden beetles before folding. They nod solemnly, then immediately forget everything and start singing a song about stinky socks and divine punishment. You try not to laugh. You fail. Still, progress is made. One of the older girls manages to rinse and fold a tunic neatly without stepping on it or trying to wear it as a headdress. You praise her. She beams. Her little brother, in response, dunks her braid in rinse water. Chaos resumes. A neighbor walks by and claps you on the shoulder. Training them young? You nod. They're naturals. A destruction. She smirks. Reminds me of my boys. One time they washed a goat, claimed it smelled dusty. You take a deep breath and clap your hands. Okay, little linens, regroup. They gather again, soaked and grinning, some holding damp cloths, some holding... Frogs? Where did you... Nope, no frogs in the basin. But it's clean now, one argues. We washed it. The frog looks alarmed. You take a short break. Sitting in the shade, you let them splash and laugh under watchful eyes. You sip date juice, more out of ritual than thirst. Your shoulders ache, your knees are wet, and someone has drawn a face on your paddle with charcoal. It has eyebrows, and yet you're content, because laundry, like language, like lullabies, gets passed down, not with ceremony, but with repetition, mistakes, laughter, wobbly folds, and too much soap. These children will remember the feel of wet linen between their fingers, the smell of natron and sunshine, the rhythm of scrub and rinse, the stories you tell while they pretend to listen. You teach them a trick your grandmother taught you, how to pinch the hem just so and shake the tunic into a perfect straight line. You demonstrate and they ooh in chorus. One tries it and flings their shirt directly into a shrub. Okay, you say, deadpan, not quite like that. Another tries and nails it. You cheer, the child preens. The others boo in mock jealousy. You end the lesson by assigning everyone one clean garment to carry carefully back to the drying lines. Most succeed. One drops theirs into a pile of goat droppings. It's poetic. The folding ritual is short-lived. They try. Some fold, some crumple. One claims theirs is modern style. You decide not to correct them. Before they run off, you hand each a square of scrap linen scented with leftover lotus oil. What's this? One asks. A reminder, you say, that even dirt can be washed away, and even linen can smell like the gods. They scamper off, squealing. You sit back, hair soaked, fingernails full of silt, and smile. It's exhausting, it's noisy, it's thankless, but it's also the future, and at least none of them fell in the river. There it is again, that blotch. That suspiciously red, stubborn stain that refuses to budge no matter how many times you've scrubbed it, soaked it, or glared at it with the full force of your soul. You stare at the tunic like it just insulted your entire family line. I've defeated wine, mud, and fish sauce, you mutter. But you are my white whale. The blotch stares back. Time to bring out the secret weapons. Ancient Egyptian stain removal is an art of chaos and creativity. No two washerfolk agree on the best method. Some swear by garlic, others goat's milk. There's even a woman across the canal who insists beetles leave behind a helpful enzyme if you smear them just right. You're not trying that one again. Today, you're going old school, garlic and goose fat. Sounds more like a sandwich than a cleaning technique, but hear you out. It's legendary. According to laundry law passed down from your great aunt, this combo lifts the stain and the evil eye. Bonus. You mash a clove of garlic with the edge of your paddle, smear it into a bit of warmed goose fat, and apply the mix directly onto the stain. It glistens ominously. You let it sit. While you wait, you take a moment to reflect on other great stain battles in your career. The honey wine incident of year 5, resolved with vinegar and sand. The infamous ink in the wrong pocket tunic. Took 3 full moon cycles and an offering to Thoth, the worst one. A robe smeared with what turned out to be crocodile bile. Still smells faintly wrong. Historians still debate how widespread these folk remedies were, or if they were mostly regional improvisations passed down orally. No temple scroll offers much guidance on red dye plus fruit pulp plus linen. And yet here you are, wielding a garlic poultice like a high priest. Time's up, you rinse. Miraculously, the stain fades. Not completely, but enough that only someone deeply nosy or wildly petty would notice. You hold the tunic up to the light. There's a faint shadow, a ghost of the battle fought. You can live with that. The garment has character now, a past. You nod, satisfied. Your neighbour leans over the wall. How'd you get it out? Garlic and goose, you say, smug. She raises an eyebrow. You cooked your tunic? No, you say. I healed it. You make a note on your personal stain chart, a wax tablet where you record stain types, attempted cures, and the final result. You've got sections labelled organic, spiritual, mystery gloop, and bird-related. You're planning to add unsolvable soon, but this one just dodged it. As you set the tunic on the line, a boy rushes into the courtyard carrying a laundry emergency, his father's sash now streaked with what looks like crushed pomegranate. He's frantic. It's his festival sash. He's going to yell. You calm him. First step, breathe. Second step, don't cry on the stain. It makes it worse. You set to work again. Pomegranate, tough, acidic, beautiful, horrifying. You reach for the barley starch and lemon vinegar. A risky combo, but hey, it's laundry day. You live on the edge. While the sash soaks, the boy sits beside you. He watches everything, quietly. You offer him a bit of honey bread. He takes it with a grateful nod. This is what you do all day? He asks. You think about it. Yes. And no. You tell him, I clean what people think is ruined. I fight the things they gave up on. He nods slowly, staring at the sash like it's about to tell him a secret. You pull it from the water, blot the edges, and press gently with a warm pebble. The stain fades just enough. Festival ready, he grins. You're better than a priest. Don't let them hear that. He darts off, sash in hand, leaving behind only a few sticky footprints and a sudden, surprising warmth in your chest. You spend the rest of the afternoon cataloguing the rest of your tools, washing stones, brushes, tweezers for burrs, and even that tiny spoon you once used to extract olive paste from a particularly tight sleeve cuff. The tunic you treated with garlic is nearly dry now, still faintly aromatic, but more in a culinary way than a dirty way. You hang it beside your robe and smile. Because for all the drama of sacred linen and scented rinses, this is the work. The real, grimy, glorious battle. Stains, defeated. One strange ingredient at a time. You rise before dawn with a strange sense of quiet anticipation, not for chores or drama or surprise goat-related disasters, but for something softer. A farewell washing. You've been asked to help prepare the burial linens for a woman in the next courtyard over. Her name was Nessira. Old, kind, slow to speak and quick to laugh, she used to sit by the temple steps and shell dates while muttering unsolicited marriage advice. You liked her. Now she's gone, and her family wants her wrapped in only the finest, clean, soft, lovingly prepared by hand. They've brought you the linen bundles with reverent silence and a jug of perfumed water you can't quite afford to spill. This work is different. You spread the linens carefully on your courtyard floor. They're not dirty. Not really. No stains or sweat, just a faint mustiness like dust that's been waiting too long to exhale. Still, they must be perfect. You soak the cloth in cool water with crushed lotus root and a pinch of sacred natron. No scrubbing, no pounding, just pressing and rinsing, as if you're coaxing the cloth to remember how to breathe. Historians still argue how much of ancient funerary laundry was symbolic and how much was purely hygienic. Burial shrouds were prized, often made from the family's best fabric, sometimes even repurposed from wedding robes or priestly garments. The richer the scent, the cleaner the fold, the greater the honor. You hum softly as you work, not a song, just a tone, a low, steady note like bees far off in the fields. You don't rush. Each fold is slow, each rinse poured like a libation. You find yourself speaking aloud, telling the linen where it's going. You'll rest her hands, you whisper. You'll cradle her shoulders. You press a corner to your cheek. It's cool, weightless, scented with myrrh now, your last bottle. You don't hesitate. You wrap the first layer loosely, as tradition says, so the spirit has room to slip away. Then a second, tighter fold for protection. Finally, a long strip of gauze-like linen that will wrap the feet. You tie it gently 3 knots, spaced apart just so. The family arrives quietly. The eldest son takes the bundle with both hands. "You're sure?" he asks. You nod. As clean as the sky at sunrise. He bows. She would have said you fold better than her. You grin. She'd be right. They leave. The courtyard is silent again. You sit beside the empty basin, looking at your hands. Wrinkled, dry, but warm. For a moment, the world feels lighter, like you've helped carry someone across a bridge you can't see. Later, you visit the market. You're there for new cloth, but also to walk among people again. After all, grief clings like dust. You need movement to shake it loose. You pass a linen merchant who recognizes you. "You did the Nasira wrap, right?" he asks. You nod. "She used to buy thread from me, said she'd marry a potter if he could sew a straight hem." You both laugh. You buy a bolt of plain white linen, modest, smooth, tightly woven. You're not sure why. Maybe for yourself, maybe for someone else someday. When you return home, a neighbor brings over a small offering, a woven fan perfumed with cardamom and cedar. "For her, but for you too," she says. You thank her. That night, you sit on your rooftop under a sky full of stars. No folding, no rinsing, just linen folded neatly at your side and the scent of myrrh still clinging faintly to your sleeves. You breathe in, you breathe out. You think of all the linen you've touched, all the bodies it's clothed, from newborns to brides, to priests, to the departed. It's humbling, to wash, to wrap, to release. And as the wind stirs your drying lines softly, just once, like a sigh, you let it carry Nasira's name into the night. You're mid-sweep in the courtyard, enjoying a rare moment of post-laundry peace when you hear it. That familiar hiss-whisper of cloth being bribed into cleanliness. You freeze. That can only mean one thing: someone's smuggling premium soap again. Sure enough, you peer over the courtyard wall and spot a woman discreetly handing a sealed amphora to a well-dressed official, wrapped tightly in a bit of palm leaf to disguise its unmistakable scent. Cedar oil. And something sweet, like imported cinnamon. High-quality stuff, the kind you only see once a year, ever, the kind you absolutely, definitely cannot afford. The official tucks the amphora under his arm like a scroll and walks away quickly, glancing around once, but saying nothing. You lean back, eyebrows raised. So it's that time of the month again. Laundry, in theory, is democratic. Everyone sweats, everyone spills lentil stew. But in reality, the hierarchy is as clear as a sunbeam in Upper Egypt. And the real divide isn't who scrubs, it's who can afford to cheat. You've known for a while now that wealthier households use more than just soap and natron. They buy imported oils, crush rare roots, and commission perfumers to blend cleaning concoctions that smell so divine they make your plain garlic goose paste feel like swamp water. And worse, they often don't launder at all. They send. They assign the task to someone else and trade a wink or a basket of honey dates in exchange for results, not method. No stains? Great. Did it involve prayer, elbow grease, or bribing a caravan merchant? Doesn't matter. Today's exchange was small, one jug, quickly passed, but it reminds you how much soap is status. You've heard whispers of black market rinse blends made by temple dropouts who still know the sacred formulas. You've seen a girl return from a quick scrub session with robes that smelled suspiciously like Nubian sandalwood, which normally costs more than a goat. And you'll never forget the time a wealthy woman dropped off her laundry at the public basin, then bribed a priest's assistant to claim it had been purified inside the temple, all for a festival appearance. Historians still argue whether such soap-related bribery was common or exaggerated, but ask anyone who's folded a noblewoman's tunic and found a gold-threaded hem still damp with forbidden perfume. It's real, and it smells expensive. You sit in your corner of the courtyard, eyeing your soap jar, the good batch you've been saving. 3 lumps. One smells like boiled turnips. Another is okay. The third is magical. Cedar oil mixed with ground fenugreek and a whisper of something fruity you still can't identify. You haven't used it yet. You've been waiting, but now something in you shifts. You walk to your rinse basin, fill it with warm water, and unwrap the 3rd lump like it's a birthday gift from the gods. It smells better than you remember. You dip your cloth, swirl. The water turns cloudy, sweet-scented. You press a festival robe into the mixture, carefully, deliberately, like you're baptizing it. You watch the dirt melt away. You watch the color revive. You feel ridiculously powerful. So this is what the bribes are for. The robe emerges soft, shimmering, and just fragrant enough to hint without boasting. You press it under a smooth clay plate to dry. You glance around. No one's watching. And for once, you don't care. You deserve this. Later, as you hang the robe, a passerby stops. New blend? She asks, eyebrow raised. You smile faintly. Old one, just saved for a good day. She nods. Smells like someone's trying to join the court. You laugh. Or at least keep up appearances. She leans in, lowers her voice. They say the merchant's wife gets her rinse oil from the capital, smuggled in amphorae marked grain. She pays double if no one asks questions. You file that away. Laundry is business. Laundry is power. By dusk, the robe is dry and glowing like polished ivory. You fold it slowly, savoring the feeling. That soap, gone now, gave you 1 robe's worth of perfection. And that's enough. You know you'll return to garlic, to natron, to elbow grease and scrubbing stones and prayers whispered to yourself. But today you joined the upper ranks, if only for a single rinse, and honestly, it felt incredible. The air is still this morning, heavy with heat, and the faint, familiar smell of burnt bread wafting from someone's kitchen. You're halfway through ringing a long rap when you notice something odd. The priest's underwear has gone missing. Yes, you read that right. You blink. You check the line again. The undergarments were there, 2 pristine pleated loincloths, starched, stiff as a moral lecture. You clipped them yourself with extra pegs to keep them from flapping into the neighbour's lemon tree like last time. Now, gone. You do a slow, deliberate scan of the courtyard. No wind, no bird daring enough, no suspicious breezes, just a laundry basket with a conspicuously empty space and your own rising dread. Losing a priest's underwear is not just a social blunder, it's a cosmic offence, because as absurd as it sounds, ancient Egyptian priests were held to standards of cleanliness so high that even their underwear was ritualized, freshly laundered, changed multiple times a day, always white, always folded in the precise, scripturally correct way that gods notice, the people notice. You notice because you've been asked to re-launder the same undergarment twice for not smelling like sunrise. Historians still debate how seriously the linen rules were enforced for temple staff, but from where you're standing, basket half empty, soul half panicking, it's very clear, extremely. You trace your steps, you ask around. Your neighbour's daughter pipes up. I saw the goat with something white. Of course. You find the goat chewing blissfully under a fig tree. It has 1 leg of the sacred underwear lodged in its jaw, tugging at it like a sacred chew toy. The rest lies crumpled in the dirt, gently absorbing the full spectrum of nature's unwanted textures. You shoe the goat, retrieve the garment, and say a word you're fairly certain wasn't approved by Ra. You rush to the basin. The damage isn't irreparable yet, but it's bad, stained, wrinkled, possibly cursed. You drop it into a rinse with sacred natron and lavender bark, whispering, "Sorry, sorry, sorry," as if that'll erase goat teeth marks. Once it's soaked, you lay it on the stone board and begin pressing, not scrubbing, coaxing. The fabric is thin, delicate, and judgmental. It does not appreciate the indignity it has suffered. You press a fresh fold down the center, sprinkle it with rosewater, and layer it under a sun-warmed tile to dry evenly. You use your nicest tile, the one you usually reserve for festival robes. You say a silent prayer to Shay, god of fate, and hope he's in a forgiving mood. As the undergarment dries, you start preparing the others. The priest wears 5 layers, all pressed, pleated, and rotated according to celestial cycles you only pretend to understand. One is embroidered, not with color, but texture. Raised threading that indicates rank. Another is designed to be bound with a narrow sash, scented with cassia oil. You fold them precisely, running your fingers along the pleats to ensure alignment. The rules are clear: no fraying, no creases where there shouldn't be creases, and absolutely, under no circumstances, no lingering smell. It's strange, really. The priest's outer robes are grand, flowing, embroidered with sacred symbols and geometric patterns, but his underwear, simple, plain, the cleanest thing you've ever touched, and somehow the most stressful. A temple novice arrives late in the afternoon to collect the garments. He looks 12. His expression, however, is that of someone who has already seen too many things and trusts nothing. He inspects your work, lifts a fold, sniffs, pauses, sniffs again. You try to smile. It comes out more like a grimace. He nods once. Acceptable. You don't know whether to laugh or collapse. He bundles the garments into a reed basket and walks away without another word. You stare after him, then exhale the breath you've been holding since sunrise. Later, as the sun bleeds across the horizon and your arms ache from folding, your neighbor stops by with a bowl of warm date porridge. "Thought you might need it," she says. "Heard about the goat." You groan. "The goat's been spreading rumors." She grins. "Well, now you've seen it all." You shake your head. "Not until I have to starch his ceremonial loincloth during a sandstorm." She laughs. "Give it time." You eat the porridge on your rooftop, legs dangling over the edge, watching your last few pieces of cloth flutter on the line. The priest's undergarments, clean again, redeemed, resting in their sacred basket, far from goat teeth and mortal shame. You tilt your head back and breathe deeply. Clean linen, stillness, and a vow to never, ever leave sacred underwear unattended again. You awaken to the soft thud, thud, thud of paddles striking wet linen in rhythm, a quiet drumming that floats in from the riverbank like a heartbeat shared across rooftops. It's not just work this morning, it's music. You follow the sound barefoot, your own arms empty for once, simply curious. The air is still cool, the sky a pale wash of gold. Down by the Nile, a half circle of washerwomen has formed, sleeves rolled, brows furrowed, but their hands are moving in time, and their mouths singing. It starts low, with one woman humming a single note. Another picks up a beat, syncopating with the smack of cloth against stone. Then comes the melody, a soft, winding tune with nonsense syllables and sharp consonants, meant less to be understood and more to carry rhythm. You know this song. You sang it once, as a child, long before you knew why laundry mattered. It's about a fish who gets caught in a washcloth and grants wishes in exchange for release. Utter nonsense, completely beloved. You take a seat on the bank, joining the group without speaking. One woman passes you a wet scarf and a paddle like an invitation. You accept, sinking your hands with theirs. Smack, lift, rinse. The song coils through your breath and out again. Historians still debate whether these songs were passed through generations or improvised daily. There's no official record of laundry lyrics, only the memory of rhythm, laughter, and the kind of melodies that turn labor into language. Another tune begins, this one bawdier, louder, a call and response between two women about a husband who left his tunic by the river and came home wearing someone else's. The verses grow more absurd with each line. You laugh yeek so hard your paddle slips and nearly floats downstream. It's caught by a girl who returns it with a wink. The mood shifts again. Someone begins a slower chant, melancholy, ancient, drawn out like the unfolding of a sheet. A funerary rhythm, perhaps. You follow the tone, softening your movements. The river reflects the change, its surface rippling more gently now. One older woman, grandmother of at least 10 by the look of her, closes her eyes as she sings. Her voice creaks, but it carries. The others hush. This verse everyone knows, a lullaby, a hymn to linen itself. May your folds be clean, your threads be strong. You cover the weak, you carry the long, through labor and sleep, from cradle to shroud. Linen, our banner, both humble and proud. You feel it. Not just the cloth in your hands, but the weight of memory behind it. Every song, every slap of soap, every hum that ever echoed against these stones. Laundry isn't just cleanliness, it's culture. You glance to your left and see a young boy beating a sash against the river rock with the seriousness of a scribe. His tongue sticks out in concentration. He sings, too, his own made-up verse about a crocodile who demands only pleated robes. You join in, of course you do. By mid-morning, the sun has climbed higher, and the songs shift again, now brisk, practical, pushing you through the last batch before the heat turns the river into a soup pot. You finish a wrap, wring it out, and lay it to dry on the reeds. Another cloth joins it, then another. Like scales across the landscape, ivory, grey, pale blue. Each one bearing the residue of a life lived and scrubbed. One of the younger women offers you a gourd of spiced water. You drink and pass it on, grateful. Everyone's hands are wrinkled now, calloused and raw, but no one complains. You close your eyes for a moment and let the sounds settle into your chest. The rhythm, the song, the water. Even silence, when it comes, feels full. Eventually, the circle begins to break apart. Someone calls their children, someone gathers soap. A few stay behind, folding the damp cloths into neat squares and chatting softly. You linger, you help fold, you hum one last verse of the fish song under your breath. Later, as you return to your own courtyard, your steps fall in time with the ghost of that rhythm. Smack, rinse, ring. The cadence lives in your bones now. And when you hang your cloths on the line that afternoon, you find yourself singing again, not because you must, but because you get to, because long after the stains are gone, the songs remain. You duck into the bustling marketplace just after midday, the heat pressing down like a heavy blanket soaked in soup. You're not here for fruit or sandals or scandalous figs. You're here for laundry supplies, a dull errand, theoretically. But not today. Because today, the market is humming with something new. Pop-up laundry booths. You pause under the shade of a linen awning that reads, "Fresh, folded, fragrance, 2 dinars a corner." A woman beckons you with one hand while wielding a large wooden paddle with the other, as if daring you to test her pleating speed. You smile. Apparently, everyone's decided to become a laundry entrepreneur this week. The first stall sells only starch kits. A neatly arranged table features tiny pouches of barley starch, rice paste, and something labeled extra firm, handle with caution. You raise an eyebrow. The stall keeper grins and waves a half-starched loincloth at you like a flag. Next stall, fragrance infusion. Tiny clay vials line the edge like a potion shop. Sandalwood and clove, crushed orange peel, something called Papyrus Daydream. You sniff that one. It smells like optimism and mild ink stains. The storekeeper leans in. New blend. Popular with young scribes who want to smell scholarly. You almost buy it just for the name. Then you spot your favorite vendor, Sati, the starch whisperer. She recognizes you and waves with her usual charm. Looking for the wrinkle cure or the stain sorcery? Something in between, you say. Wrinkled, but emotionally complex. She laughs and hands you a small folded square soaked in vinegar and lavender. Try this. Press it overnight under weight. Makes old cloth remember its younger days. You hand her a few coins. I need more of that than I thought. Further down the row is a demonstration booth. 2 washermen are engaged in a timed fold-off, surrounded by a raucous crowd cheering for their favorite. You squeeze into the back just in time to see one of them throw a perfect 3-crease robe onto the display board while spinning dramatically on one heel. The crowd roars. A fishmonger tosses him a pickled date in celebration. Historians might scoff at this. There are no scrolls mentioning competitive folding circuits or public starch-offs, but that doesn't mean they didn't happen. Markets were social centers. If someone could make a dinar scrubbing a tunic faster than their neighbor, why wouldn't they? The next booth is stranger. The sign reads, "Curse removal services, 1 garment at a time." You approach warily. A tall woman in layered robes examines your skeptical expression. Stains caused by jealousy, hexes, or bad dreams. We extract them. You look down at the tunic in your bag, the one that never smells quite right, no matter how you scrub it. You offer it up, half joking. She takes it, holds it to her nose and closes her eyes. Left in a jealous neighbor's shadow for too long. Try rinsing it in moon water next full moon. Hang it facing east. You blink, and if that doesn't work, then it's just badly made. You pay her 2 copper coins for the diagnosis and walk away with a smile. By late afternoon, the heat is unbearable, so you duck into the shade of a spice stall and unpack your purchases. A vial of orange blossom rinse, a new paddle, narrow grip, slightly curved for elbow comfort, and a bundle of tiny pleat-pressing stones shaped like beetles. Decorative and functional, you're already in love. As you sit, a little girl walks by holding up a freshly folded tunic. "Best deal in the market," she shouts. 2 creases for the price of 1. She's 5. You're terrified. You finish your shopping with one last stop at the peg seller's booth. His pegs are famous for their grip, crafted from olive wood, sanded smooth, and rubbed with resin so your linen never flies off during surprise gusts. He recognizes you immediately. Still using the old set? Only lost 3 this month. He whistles. You deserve better. You splurge, a full new set in a reed woven pouch with a bonus peg shaped like a fish. You name it on the spot, Gripperhotep. Back home, you unpack your haul like treasures from a far-off voyage. The new paddle fits your hand perfectly. The starch square makes your festival robe almost sing with straightness. The orange blossom rinse, heaven. You hang your next batch of linens with confidence. Everything smells like new beginnings. Your neighbor peers over the wall. Went to the laundry market, didn't you? You grin. Is it that obvious? She sniffs. You smell like productivity and ambition. Later that evening, you light a small oil lamp and gently brush the beetle-shaped pleat stones. They gleam in the soft light, ready for tomorrow. Because laundry isn't just labor, not today. Today it's commerce. It's theater. It's you rising through the ranks, one perfectly folded corner at a time. The sun rises behind the palms with a slow yawn casting long, drowsy beams across the dusty village lanes, and you, already elbow-deep in rinse water, are preparing for the solstice scrubbing festival. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Once a year, as dictated by both custom and a particularly poetic priest's calendar from 2 generations ago, the entire village comes together for a ceremonial laundry day, part ritual, part cleansing, and part let's finally wash that thing you've been hiding since harvest season. You tie back your hair with a reed cord and step outside, basket in hand, greeted by a flurry of neighbors in various stages of frantic preparation. Someone is hammering new pegs into a drying board. Someone else is boiling starch like it's soup for 100. Even the goats are dressed in freshly rinsed cloths tied with neat bows. One of them gives you a look that can only be described as exhausted. You nod in sympathy. At the heart of the festival is the cleansing circle, a wide ring drawn in chalk and coloured sand, carefully sketched in the temple courtyard at dawn. Around this ring, families will lay out every garment they own. Yes, even the backup loincloths, even the ragged head wraps used for dust storms and extremely reluctant market trips. Tradition says that whatever is cleansed in the solstice ring is protected from misfortune for a full year. This includes curses, vermin, body odor, and embarrassing wrinkles during temple processions. It's not something people take lightly. You arrive just as the head priestess sprinkles a trail of crushed mint leaves along the edge of the ring. 4 temple novices follow behind her, each carrying a different scented oil: frankincense, myrrh, cedar, and some kind of floral concoction that always smells faintly of funerals and cinnamon. "Lay your linens with intention," she calls, voice clear and high, "and fold with reverence." Someone drops a tunic into the sand and is immediately glared into repentance. You find your spot and begin. Every item must be placed with care. One edge of the cloth must face east, the side of sunrise. The hem must be smoothed with the right hand only. The center fold must be sharp enough to part ill fortune, like a reed in the Nile. You glance around. The scene is hypnotic. Families crouch over piles of cloth, hands moving in unison. Children run between lines, carrying folded offerings to parents. A woman whispers blessings into a headscarf before laying it down. A man carefully unfolds the robe he wore at his wedding, then flattens it against the earth with a hand that trembles just slightly. You take out your most treasured piece, a shawl handed down from your mother's mother, once bright white, now worn to the color of pearl. You fold it with a breath and a whisper, and place it in the ring. There's a hush. Then the drums begin, slow, steady, grounding. It's not music for dancing, it's music for rinsing the soul. Each person steps back from their laid garments. The temple servants walk the perimeter of the circle, scattering water blessed under the morning star. It lands in droplets across your laundry, shimmering like dew. It's ceremonial, yes, but also strangely practical. A blessing and a light rinse. Then comes the recitation. From dirt we come, to dust we return, but in between let there be linen, and let it be clean. Everyone joins the final line, like a hymn wrapped in shared labor. You feel it, that small flicker of belonging, of being part of something older and larger than just your own basket of soap-stained tunics. After the rites, it's time for the symbolic scrubbing. A cloth from each family is chosen to be washed in public, by hand, with a special soap paste mixed that morning using honey, river silt, and wild herbs. You're honored and mildly horrified to find yourself selected. They hand you the communal cloth, a large square of undyed linen, woven coarsely but strong. You dip it in the basin, scrub it with the sacred paste, and beat it gently against a smooth, sun-warmed stone. It smells of rosemary and lemon peel and something earthy you can't quite name. You wring it slowly, twisting out the old year's burdens. The crowd watches in respectful silence. You lay the cloth over the edge of the basin. The water below is now murky and shimmering, a mix of soap, sun, and memory. It's collected in a large clay jar to be poured over the fields as a final act of cleansing before harvest. Afterward, everyone returns to their linens. Each piece, now dried by the noon sun, is collected with thanks. Children whisper blessings as they fold. Elders inspect seams with approving nods. One young boy hugs his freshly pressed loincloth like it's a gift from the gods. You gather your own stack, smelling faintly of mint, sunshine, and old comfort, and tie it with a strip of woven cord. There's a lightness to it, not in weight, in meaning. The final ceremony involves tossing a scrap of stained cloth into a fire, a release. You choose a wrap that's seen one too many oil spills and say goodbye with a grin. Your neighbor nudges you. Feel better? Cleaner than my conscience, you reply. She laughs. That's the solstice for you. That evening, the village glows in the amber light, garments fluttering like pale flags of renewal. You hang your linens with pride, knowing they've been seen, blessed, and, in some odd way, understood. Clean, protected, ready for another year of dust, sweat, scrubbing, And maybe, if you're lucky, a bit more singing. You feel it before you see it. A slight graininess in the soap, a weird stick in the scrub, the scent of something off, like spoiled porridge and crushed weeds. You freeze mid-wash. This isn't regular soap. This is substitute season. You glance up toward the hills beyond the Nile where flax once grew lush, soap makers once rendered animal fats, and trade routes once flowed like water. But this year, crops failed, caravans were delayed, and worst of all, the soap ran out. The great soap shortage, as it will be dramatically remembered in your personal laundry diary, has officially begun. You reach into the small clay pot of soap that your cousin swore was just like the real thing and recoil. It's not. It's gritty, oily, and has the consistency of regret. You sniff. Goat tallow? Definitely. Crushed chickpeas? Maybe. Optimism? Absolutely not. You steel yourself and keep scrubbing, trying not to gag as the paste smears rather than cleans. Beside you, your neighbour gives a pitiful look. She holds up her own mixture. Beetroot, starch and mud, she says. Deadpan. Effective. Only at dyeing things red. You look down at your poor tunic. It used to be ivory. Now it's taking on the tone of a confused pomegranate. Word spreads fast. You hear murmurs across the courtyard of failed batches. Someone tried a fig paste. Someone else boiled reeds. One family resorted to river silt mixed with honey, results pending. A brave soul even tried washing clothes in beer. Not just any beer, old beer. The flat, warm leftovers scraped from the bottom of a jug. It sort of worked. It also smelled like a pub in decline. Historians still debate the actual recipes used when standard soap ingredients ran low. Some records suggest emergency pastes made with date pulp and ashes. Others imply temple servants hoarded real soap during shortages and traded it like gold. You believe it. One of the temple novices winked at you earlier and whispered, "I know a guy." You're still not sure if he meant soap or sacred relics. You begin experimenting. Your first batch, goat fat, mint leaves and stale barley flour. The result, a slippery paste that smells like bitter salad dressing. You try it on a small cloth. It cleans nothing, makes the stains hungrier. Second batch, olive mash, a pinch of natron, and a drop of orange blossom water you were saving for a better life. The smell is nice, but the texture resembles spoiled hummus. You go to bed that night feeling defeated. But then something shifts. A neighbour knocks on your door the next morning holding a bowl of cloudy liquid. "Try this," she says. "I boiled soap scraps with vinegar and lemon peel. Let it sit overnight." You do. It works. Not perfectly, but it cuts through oil stains better than your fig paste. It smells like salad dressing still, but ambitious salad dressing. You replicate the mixture with your own scraps and add a dash of river silt for good measure. It's gritty but functional. You share your discovery. Soon the entire courtyard is swapping recipes like sacred texts. A recipe board is scratched into the side of a laundry shed. Someone carves little drawings. Goat ties fat, squiggle needs mint, dot circle needs lemon. Children are dispatched as errand runners. "Tell Aunt Layla we need more vinegar." "Find me 5 clean pebbles for agitation." It becomes a movement, a revolution. Soapmakers uprising. The shortage becomes a shared challenge rather than a catastrophe. And somewhere in the middle of it you realize something profound. The act of trying to stay clean, especially when it's difficult, is a kind of defiance, of dirt, of hardship, of giving up. You gather your new batch of homemade semi-soap. It's slightly foamy, miraculous. You use it on a robe you've been avoiding, the one with a huge smear of olive oil from a festival feast gone wrong. You scrub gently, chant softly, rinse carefully. It works, not completely, but it lifts the stain just enough that the robe could be mistaken for a deliberate tie-dye attempt. You smile and laugh, because sometimes that's what laundry is, not perfection, not divine whiteness, just progress, just getting a little closer to clean. As the sun sets, your rooftop is lined with garments that smell of lemon, mint, vinegar, and grit. Your fingers are raw, your soap pot is empty again, but your heart full, because when the world stops handing out soap, you make your own. The next morning, you roll out of bed, rub the sleep from your eyes, and are immediately hit with something off. Something sweet, cloying, overpowering. You sniff your tunic and recoil. Oh no, you've overdone it. You smell like a perfume merchant's nightmare. Turns out, adding an extra splash or three of orange blossom oil to your soap scrap mixture was a mistake. A well-intentioned, olfactory overkill of a mistake. You now smell like a wedding offering dropped in a honey vat and forgotten for weeks. You step outside and a goat actually backs away. Your neighbour, Teppy, wrinkles her nose and squints at you. Planning to attract bees? Maybe, you reply, hoping they'll do the folding. She cackles and hands you a wrapped bundle of herbs. Try rosemary, cuts the sweetness. Or just burn the tunic. You sigh, eyeing your poor garment on the line, gleaming white, perfectly clean, and yet so fragrant it might qualify as a personal attack. This kicks off a courtyard-wide debate. Perfume versus cleanliness. The lines are quickly drawn. Team scent equals. Clean believes that a good-smelling tunic is functionally cleaner, regardless of actual hygiene. If it smells like a priest's feast, it must be clean, one supporter argues, pressing a clove-scented veil to her nose. Team True Clean disagrees, led by a starch evangelist named Meru, who swears by unscented natron and nothing else. If I can smell your clothes from the other side of the market, he grumbles, you're trying to hide something. Historians still argue about the ancient Egyptian obsession with scent. It's well documented that they valued perfumes, kefir, myrrh, frankincense, but how it interacted with laundry practices is less clear. What's obvious from temple records and burial texts is that smell equated to purity. If it didn't smell right, it wasn't ritually clean, which leaves you standing awkwardly in the middle as a kind of walking cautionary tale. Your sash wafts sweet citrus every time you move. A baby nearby starts trying to lick it. You retreat indoors. There, you begin the neutralization process. Step 1. Soak the tunic in warm water with crushed rosemary, mint, and a whisper of regret. Step 2. Press gently with a bundle of clean reeds. Step 3. Hang it in full sun while murmuring "never again" under your breath. You open your reed chest and pull out other scented items you may have overdone. The pomegranate-dyed scarf still lingers like dessert. The cedar rinsed wrap smells like a sacrificial altar. You set them all aside for what you now call the defragrance pile. Just then, a cousin stops by, breathing hard. I need your help, she pants. I accidentally mixed my mother-in-law's tunics with my festival soap. You blink. The one with saffron and cinnamon? She nods. Oh. You arrive at her courtyard to find the laundry line glowing with robes that smell incredible. Problem is, they also smell scandalous. Help me rinse the sin out of them, she whispers, terrified. She'll think I'm plotting. You get to work. The defragrance method becomes your specialty. Rosemary soak, mint steam, sun-dry with bay leaves for grounding. Soon other neighbors begin appearing. A novice priest whose ceremonial skirt smells too floral. A baker whose apron carries the essence of rose cakes from a recent soap experiment. Even the temple cat arrives smelling suspiciously like sandalwood. You start a quiet business. Not laundering, unlaundering. You call it the wind reset. You rinse, press, and restore linen to something close to neutral. Clean, yes, but not shouty, whisper clean. A week later, Teppy returns, holding a wrap. Smell this, she says proudly. You inhale cautiously. It smells like nothing, absolutely nothing, a miracle. I did it, she beams. Used your mint basil mix, clean as river mist. You nod. It's beautiful. Also, she adds with a smirk, I kept one sash scented for market days. You grin. That's allowed. Because here's the truth. Scent is power, a choice, a statement. But it's not the same as clean. You now own a collection of defragrancing blends stored in small clay pots labeled Whisper, Temple Appropriate, and In-Law Neutral. You still use perfume, occasionally, but now you respect it. Because just like a good fold, a good scent should be felt, not shouted. You hang your tunics at dusk, the breeze fluttering through rosemary-scented linen. Somewhere below, Someone starts singing the cinnamon disaster song and you laugh. You're not ashamed. You learned your lesson. Next time, half a drop. You're midway through rinsing a particularly stubborn wrap, one that smells faintly like pickled onions and wounded pride, when you hear the commotion. Voices raised, sandals slapping against stone, the unmistakable, slightly panicked clink of foreign jewelry. You peek over the courtyard wall and spot them. Foreigners. Specifically, a small group of Greek traders sweating profusely in their layered tunics, speaking far too loudly about their laundry woes in a language that sounds like a debate between olives. One of them is holding up a silk garment, drenched, crumpled, and clearly confused about how it ended up in Egypt. The man is frowning at it like it personally betrayed him. "This sun is too harsh," he cries. "I put it out for 1 hour and now it looks like my mother's old curtain." You press your lips together to keep from laughing. It's not their fault, really. They don't know the rules. Egyptian laundry isn't universal. You approach slowly, curiosity outweighing your better judgment. The foreigner notices you and holds out his sad, now vaguely yellowed tunic. "Can you explain why the air here melts fabric?" You glance at the cloth. Silk, thin. Not built for Egypt's sun, wind, or sand. You nod solemnly. Your fabric had a panic attack. Another man joins in, holding a woolen wrap. "We tried drying this on the rooftop. Now it smells like goat." "Because it was warm, damp, and uphill from the goat pen," you say, gently. They blink. You sigh and motion them toward your shaded line. You point. "You dry delicate fabric here, under cover, not in full sun." One of them blinks. "But the sun is free." You pause. "So is damage." You lead a quick crash course in Desert Laundry 101. Never dry silk in direct sun. Always weigh corners with smooth stones. Never wooden pegs, they stain. If it flaps in the wind, it wants to leave you. And for the love of Thoth, don't use perfume oil on wool. It's a smell trap. The traders nod, scribbling notes on wax tablets. One adds a small sketch of a sandal melting in sunlight, labeled "Too Close to Fire Orb." You glance at their linen pieces, some of them dyed bright purple, others stitched with symbols unfamiliar to you. One man holds up a cloth painted with what appears to be an octopus playing a flute. You raise an eyebrow. "It's for a festival," he explains. You decide not to ask. They bring out their soap next, or what they think is soap. It's olive oil cake pressed with herbs and dried flower petals. Lovely, useless. You shake your head. "That's for bathing, not scrubbing." You grab a lump of your own natron blend and hand it over. This eats dirt. That one just makes you slippery." They look horrified. "We've been using it on everything." "That explains the oil patches," you mutter. One trader reaches into his pack and pulls out a tiny amphora. "We brought this from home," he says proudly. "It's rose water. Can we rinse with it?" You uncork it. It smells incredible. Light, floral, slightly powdery. But there's barely enough to rinse a handkerchief. You hand it back gently. "Keep that for your face. Your clothes don't deserve it." The men are grateful, perhaps overly so. One tries to offer you a tiny gold coin in thanks. You wave it off. "Just don't start another laundry fire," you joke. They look alarmed. You spend the afternoon supervising their new setup. Delicate silks hanging from shaded ropes, light linens pinned at an angle, wool laid flat on clay tiles far from any goat-adjacent breeze. They're like children, determined, eager, slightly incompetent. One folds a tunic with such complexity that it ends up looking like a pastry. You fix it. Another sings loudly while scrubbing, inventing lyrics that rhyme soap with hope and rope. You try not to cringe. By sunset, their garments are clean, drying properly, and blessedly unscented. One trader offers you a strange-looking fruit as thanks. "It's from Crete," he says. "Tastes like ambition and regret." You take a bite. He's right. Later, as they leave, you hear one whisper to the others, "She's like a laundry priestess." You smirk. Back on your rooftop, your own linens flap gently in the breeze, properly weighted, perfectly folded, confidently free of goat scent. You stretch your arms, roll your shoulders, and close your eyes. Egypt has her ways. and so does her laundry. And now, thanks to you, a group of slightly sunburned foreigners will at least go home with clothes that didn't turn into shriveled husks in the afternoon sun. You consider it your civic duty. You wake to a whispering breeze, just cool enough to promise a tolerable morning and not yet strong enough to snatch the linens off the line. Today is inspection day, and you already feel judged. No, not by your neighbours, by the Temple Laundry Guild. Yes, there is a guild. They arrive once a moon cycle to observe hygiene practices among the populace, which is a polite way of saying they poke at your underthings with a stick and silently raise one eyebrow. You've been preparing all week. Your folds are crisp, your hems are aligned. Your natron blend has been upgraded with ground fennel and a trace amount of smugness. You even pre-dried your outer tunics in the shade to avoid discoloration from last week's sandalwood rinse. But still, you worry. The guild is led by Passeret, a woman with the posture of a measuring rod and eyes like obsidian marbles. She's been folding longer than you've been alive, and once, reportedly, removed a merchant's robe from public display because it insulted the idea of cleanliness. You light a tiny incense stick, not to hide any odour, but to encourage the gods to blink politely. Then they arrive. 4 figures in flowing white robes, each carrying a laundry staff, a short rod carved with fold marks, symbolizing divine geometry. They walk slowly, with all the theatrical menace of a crocodile circling a canoe. You greet them with bowed head and humble smile. Blessings, linen at your leisure. They don't smile back. Passeret begins the ritual, a slow pacing of your drying line, her fingers twitching ever so slightly, as she notes peg placement, hem alignment, and, yes, even crease symmetry. She stops in front of your prized tunic, the one with the restored collar and that faint lemon scent you were sure would be pleasant, but subtle. She leans in, sniffs, closes her eyes. You die a little. Then she opens them, turns slightly, and offers a slow, almost imperceptible nod. You nearly faint. The rest of the inspection goes quickly. One novice takes detailed notes on a small wax tablet. Another measures your rinse basin depth. A third briefly questions your decision to mix mint with vinegar in your soap paste, then retracts their concern upon smelling your rinsing cloth. Historians still debate whether these guild inspections were formal, spiritual, or simply social theatre. There's no surviving decree requiring them, but every community had at least one elder who insisted well-folded linen invites Ra's approval. You believe it. As the guild concludes, Passeret approaches you. "Your goat," she says flatly. You blink. "What about him?" "He was chewing someone's sash near the communal basin." You glance at the animal, who looks smug. "I'll speak with him," you offer. She nods once. "Also," she says, producing a folded square of parchment, "the temple is compiling examples of exemplary domestic technique. You are being considered." Your eyes widen. "Me?" She turns to leave. "Only if your next batch improves the color retention in the inner pleats." You nod furiously. "Absolutely. I'll pray directly to the pigment gods." She pauses. "That may have been a joke." She doesn't correct you. The guild departs. You exhale. You did it. You weren't banished. You weren't scolded. You weren't labelled a rogue launderer and marched into the Nile holding a bar of soap as punishment. Instead, you're being considered. You walk back to your courtyard like a war hero. Your neighbour Tepi claps slowly. "Colour retention in the inner pleats," she mimics. She only says that to people she doesn't hate. You bow. "I'm thinking of starting a school," you joke. "Linen Philosophy 101, first lecture. Don't let your goat eat the inspector's sash." She wheezes. Later that evening, you gather your linens with a sense of reverence. You place the inspected tunic in its own reed basket, lay a protective cloth over it, and whisper, "Thank you," just in case tunics absorb praise. As stars begin to pepper the sky, you sit by the rinse basin and stare into its stillness. Your hands ache. Your back hums with fatigue. But your spirit, clean. Because sometimes the highest compliment isn't applause, it's a silent nod from a woman with terrifying eyebrows. And honestly, you'll take it. It starts with a sneeze, a sharp, echoing sneeze from behind the courtyard wall, followed by a groan and the unmistakable thud of someone dramatically collapsing into a pile of laundry. You peek over the wall, there lies your neighbour's apprentice, draped across half-dried tunics like a tragic poet. "I can't," he mumbles. "The dust, the herbs, the linen pollen." You blink. "Linen doesn't have pollen." He sneezes again. Welcome to laundry allergy season, that delightful time of year when the desert winds shift, the air thickens with invisible grit, and everyone begins to suspect they're allergic to cleanliness itself. Your nose twitches in sympathy. The air today is dry but sharp, the kind of breeze that picks up crushed flour bits, powdered soap residue, errant threads, and every unfortunate scent experiment from the last 2 weeks. It wafts all of it directly into your face. You take a deep breath. Bad idea. You sneeze too. By mid-morning, the courtyard is a war zone. Everyone's eyes are puffy. Elbows are raw from too much sleeve wiping. One man has tied a linen napkin around his face like a bandit. Another insists the orange blossom oil has cursed his nostrils. Someone blames the goats again. Historians might not write songs about allergy season, but it was real. Ancient Egyptian texts mentioned sicknesses of the nose, often around harvest and wind change periods. Some scribes even blamed excess natron dust and pollen from imported herbs like lavender and coriander. You try everything. A splash of river water to the face, a rinse basin filled with mint-steeped cloths. You tie a damp wrap over your mouth like a medic. Your laundry smells amazing, yes, but you're weeping through it. The real trouble begins when the wind kicks up just as everyone's mid-fold. One particularly ambitious gust snatches a half-folded robe off the line and flings it into your rinse basin. Another knocks your peg basket across the courtyard. You chase it, sneezing, tripping over a tunic, only to find your goat cheerfully eating the soap instructions. You shout, he sneezes, everyone blames the goat. Again, you regroup, rinse your face, retie your mask. And this time you anchor every corner of cloth with flat stones dipped in vinegar water, an old trick said to neutralize dust and make the linen too serious to fly. Your neighbor Tepi appears in a full wrap, face covered, eyes narrow. "It's war," she says. You nod. "I've fortified the folds." "Natron?" she asks. "Double dusted?" "Incense?" "Frankincense and mild judgment." She salutes you with a damp cloth. "May your nostrils survive." You think that might be the highest compliment anyone's given you today. Mid-afternoon, the wind shifts again, less vicious, more tired. The air still hums with particulates, but they float lower now, less angry. You manage to fold 5 full garments without sneezing. Your goat, meanwhile, is trying to climb into a rinse pot. You don't stop him. It's his problem now. Someone across the wall starts singing, a nasal, whiny rendition of an old washer's lullaby, now with entirely new lyric. "My tunic flew off, it sailed to the Nile, it's sneezing and wheezing and folding with style." You join in, croaking on the high notes. Everyone is tired, everyone is coated in something, but somehow everything is still cleaner than it was this morning. You take a moment at sunset to breathe, carefully, through one nostril. The breeze finally settles, the air turns amber and soft, your linens flutter gently on the line, weighted, protected, blessedly folded. You light a small clove-scented oil lamp, more for mood than fragrance. You sip from a warm cup of fenugreek tea, hoping it clears your throat and spirit alike. As stars flicker overhead, you whisper to your stack of tunics, "We made it." Not pristine, not perfect, but folded through a storm. And that, you think, counts for everything. The village is buzzing, not with gossip, not with market squabbles, not even with sandal discounts, but with a laundry rumour. You overhear it first at the rinse well. "He folds with only one hand," someone whispers. "No creases out of place," another says, eyes wide. "A travelling linen monk," a third insists, "swore a vow of silence and starch." You blink. This you have to see. That afternoon, you join a crowd forming at the temple courtyard, where an unfamiliar figure has set up a modest station, a reed mat, a wooden basin, a single smooth stone, and a line with exactly 3 white garments already flapping like smug little banners. The man himself is small, cloaked, quiet. His left hand stays tucked inside his wrap. With his right, he dips, rings, folds, and presses. In perfect rhythm, his movements are so precise they're almost meditative. You watch, slack-jawed, as he lays a full robe flat with one hand and somehow tucks the hem with his elbow. He doesn't glance up, doesn't pause. His breathing is steady like a sleeping cat. Someone leans close and mutters, "Legend says he once folded 100 tunics in a single evening, by moonlight." Someone else adds, he turned down a royal appointment to pursue in a laundry enlightenment. You whisper, "I heard he can detect fabric origin by sound." Nobody questions it. Historians, of course, would scoff. There are no papyrus scrolls detailing a sect of ascetic laundry monks, no clay records of single-handed starch savants. But that's what makes a good myth, its refusal to explain itself. After an hour, the man finally looks up. His face is kind, weather-worn, quiet. He sees the crowd and, instead of bowing or speaking, gently holds up a folded tunic with 2 fingers. It is beautiful. No creases, no wrinkles, edges aligned with unnatural precision. You swear the wind pauses just to admire it. He holds it out. To you, you glance around. Surely he means the goat behind you? No, the goat is eating a sandal. He means you. You step forward slowly and take the tunic. It's light, perfectly balanced, cool from the breeze, and smells faintly of rosemary and humility. You nod, overwhelmed. "Thank you." He nods back, says nothing. Then quietly he begins folding again. You retreat, stunned, clutching the tunic like a relic. That evening you try to recreate the fold. It's good, not great, but it carries the echo of something better. You lay it out for closer study. The seams are aligned just so. The central pleat flows down like a river line. The whole thing sits on your table like a small fabric temple. You don't wear it, not yet. Instead, you build a small frame for it out of reeds and string and hang it by your sleeping mat like a reminder, not of perfection, but of possibility, because somewhere in this dusty, sun-soaked world, someone can still make art out of soap and linen, not for praise, not for gold, just for the quiet joy of doing it well. The next morning, you fold your own tunics more slowly, more thoughtfully, one hand at a time. You teach yourself patience, balance, and soon, without realizing it, your stacks begin to resemble something close to what you saw. Not identical, but yours. Later that week, the mysterious folder disappears, vanished as quietly as he came. No trace, no basket, just an empty mat, and one small stone with a single crease line etched into it. You keep the stone, of course you do, because now, when your folds feel rushed, when your starch mix is too thick, or your patience too thin, you run your thumb along the groove in that stone and remember. Even laundry can be an art. It begins with a challenge. Not a shout, not a dare, but a gently placed papyrus scroll slipped under your door, tied with faded blue thread. You unroll it carefully, your fingers still damp from rinsing, and read the message written in precise, slightly pompous, hieratic script. Esteemed folder of the South Courtyard, you are hereby invited to participate in the first annual Nile folding exhibition. Noon, 2 days hence. Bring your finest cloth and your firmest resolve. You blink. A folding exhibition. This is either an elaborate prank or your destiny. Tepi bursts in moments later, waving her own scroll. "It's real," she squeals. "Finally! Recognition for those of us who complete under pressure." You nod slowly. "Do we compete?" "Oh yes," she grins. "Timed folds, symmetry evaluations. There's even a precision drop test." You don't ask what that means. You're already afraid. The next 2 days pass in a laundry montage worthy of an epic. You sharpen your pleating stones. You oil your paddle. You test crease alignment by balancing pebbles on folded seams. You even invent a new finishing move, the half-turn fold glide, which earns you a round of applause from a passing chicken. Your goat, meanwhile, keeps stealing your practice cloths and hiding them in the herb garden. Arden, you'll deal with him later. When the big day arrives, the entire courtyard has been transformed. A large reed mat has been laid down in the centre. Shaded tents ring the edges, filled with spectators, skeptics and soap vendors who smell suspiciously competitive. At the heart of the arena, the folding circle. A perfect chalk ring lined with markers indicating fold boundaries. Inside, participants kneel with baskets beside them. Each has exactly 3 garments, a tunic, a wrap, and a ceremonial sash. All must be folded in order under the scrutiny of 4 judges and 1 unblinking temple cat. Your name is called. You step into the circle, knees creaking slightly, palms dry and ready. Across from you, your opponent is none other than Meru, the starch purist. He gives you a short nod, eyes narrow. His basket is pristine. His paddle gleams with smug polish. The gong sounds. You begin. Tunic first. Smooth the shoulders, align the hem, crease down the center. Easy. You breathe through your nose, slow and steady. Ignore the crowd. Ignore the goat chewing a competitor's sandal. Focus on the fabric. Wrap next. Fold, press, reverse, glide. You falter slightly. Your wrap's edge is uneven. You adjust. It costs you a few seconds, but you recover. Meru's wrap is immaculate, but his fingers are shaking. You wonder if he skipped lunch. Finally, the ceremonial sash, the hardest of all, thin, slippery, prone to mocking you with unpredictable twists. You steady your hands, fold once, fold twice, slide the end into the finishing tuck and, yes, it holds. You place your hands in your lap and exhale. The judges step forward. One inspects your stack with a wooden rod, measuring alignment. Another sniffs for residual soap. The third adjusts the sash ever so slightly and nods. The cat hops onto your folded wrap, curls up, and immediately falls asleep. This, apparently, is the highest possible praise. The gong sounds again. You've done it! Meru rises stiffly. His folds are good, excellent even, but one hem is askew and his sash has uncoiled, just slightly. He doesn't look angry, just resigned. He bows to you. You bow back. You receive your prize. A reed plaque engraved with a folding glyph, a jar of specialty starch infused with lotus, and, best of all, the respect of your peers. That night, back in your courtyard, the stars twinkle brighter than usual. Your neighbours cheer. Someone sings the folding song of victory, which is frankly just the rinse song in a higher key. You hang your winning folds beside your sleeping mat, not to show off, but to remember that even something as soft and ordinary as linen can hold stories, skill, struggle, even honour. You're not just a folder now, you're an exhibition finisher. And if the sash stays in place overnight, well, you might even be a legend. You don't mean to become a teacher. It starts innocently. Your cousin's daughter, curious, tugging at your hem as you fold, asking, "Why do you press the corner twice?" You answer simply, "So the cloth remembers where to rest." She nods very seriously and mimics you, badly, but with heart. Then another child appears, then 3 more, then someone brings their nephew, then someone else says, "Can I sit and watch?" And suddenly your courtyard is a laundry school. You never planned lessons, you never made announcements, but now you're explaining fold weight to 8 people and a goat who refuses to leave the rinse corner. You draw lines in dust, demonstrate basin angles with clay cups, and practice towel flips using discarded sashes. You make them repeat the basics: wet, press, fold, smooth from center to corner. Breathe before the final crease. And every time someone says, "I can't," you just smile and say, "You will." They struggle. Of course they do. One girl folds a wrap so tight it becomes a fabric stick. A boy insists his tunic is more dramatic if folded diagonally. Another thinks ringing is a competitive sport and soaks half the courtyard. You don't scold, you laugh, then show them again. Historians rarely wrote of domestic teaching traditions in Egypt, but oral stories, especially among families, were vital. Folding wasn't just a task, it was a language passed hand to hand. one crease at a time. You start keeping practice cloths in a separate basket. You slice old robes into quarters for beginners. You invent games, fastest fold without tearing, straightest hem with eyes closed, and the dreaded find the wrinkle challenge. They adore it, and slowly, they get better. One child, awkward, quiet, manages the perfect triple fold on her third day. She stares at it like she's found a spell. You whisper, "That's yours, keep it, show someone else how." She nods, doesn't speak, and disappears around the corner. That night, you find a small thank you note tucked into your rinse bucket. It's drawn on linen, sketched with charcoal, a hand folding a tunic, gently, carefully. You hang it above your wash basin. Word spreads. The temple sends an apprentice to observe. A merchant's daughter brings spiced soap for the group. Someone loans you a spare reed mat to expand the classroom. You begin each session with a story now, about folds that held royal robes, or wraps lost and found, or the time your goat ate half a tunic and burped out a perfectly knotted sash. The children laugh every time, even the shy ones. Your students grow into folders. They begin helping their families, folding festival cloths with pride. One boy invents a new corner flip technique. Another writes a rhyme to remember rinse times. They begin teaching each other. And you? You watch and guide and step back when it's their turn. One afternoon, a temple novice returns with a request. Could you come teach at the temple school just once a week? You pause. Look around at the fluttering line of modest but well-folded cloth, the smiles, the echoes of your own mentors in every corrected crease. You nod. Because teaching folding is like folding itself, an act of care, repetition, and quiet transformation. That evening, alone on your rooftop, you fold a single linen square. Slowly, intentionally. You press it flat and hold it close, not perfect, but full of meaning and waiting to be shared. It's just after dawn and the Nile mist is rising in soft ribbons across the banks when a quiet knock comes at your gate. You're already awake, sipping a warm cup of fenugreek tea, folding a scarf for no reason other than comfort. The knock comes again, gentle, steady, respectful. You open the gate. A young man stands there, barefoot, wrapped in a linen robe, 2 sizes too large, eyes wide with both fear and hope. He bows low and holds out a small satchel. Inside, 3 severely wrinkled wraps, a folded note, and a tiny clay medallion shaped like a palm leaf. You read the note. This is my son. He wishes to walk the folding path. You blink. There is no folding path. Not officially. Not yet. And yet, by mid-morning, you've cleared a space in your courtyard, laid out spare cloth, prepared a small pot of starter soap paste, and written out a few diagrams. More arrive. Not just children, adults too, curious, nervous, determined. They come from other neighborhoods, even across the river. Some heard about the laundry competition. Some were told of your folding circles. One says simply, "I saw your crease on my cousin's robe and needed to know how it happened." You nearly cry. And so the courtyard grows. You assign washing corners, drying stations, a starch shelf carefully monitored by Teepee, who's now declared herself vice mistress of mixtures. Someone brings reed baskets to organize cloth by practice level. Someone else offers a goat-free zone. Your goat takes offense. You form small groups, the beginners, the refolders, the ones who can't stop adding extra folds. Each with their own tempo, their own awkward charm. You teach them more than folds. You teach the quiet of folding, the rhythm of rinse and press, the sacred pause before creasing, the deep sigh of satisfaction when a wrap lies perfectly still on its final edge. You even teach undoing, how to unfold carefully, to learn from what didn't work. One woman weeps when her wrap finally rests without curling. A man in his 70s folds a tunic without shaking for the first time in years and whispers, "I never knew cloth could listen." They start telling you stories about laundry fights and healing through chores, and the time someone folded a farewell letter into a pocket seam, about grandmothers who folded in silence and mothers who taught them to rinse with the left hand for luck, about grief and sweat and love embedded in starch. They ask questions you don't always have answers for. Why do some cloths crease wrong no matter how careful I am? Why does folding make me feel like I remember something I've forgotten? You answer the only way you can, by folding with them. Not above, beside. You begin to dream of a formal school, a place with shaded walls, rows of pegs, and rows of cloth arranged like a soft archive, a place where creases are honored like words and where hands grow wise through repetition. One morning, a small boy who's been struggling with diagonal folds finally gets it. He beams, holds it up like a treasure, says, "I'll teach someone now." And you realize you've already built the school, not with bricks, with practice. That night, you fold your own clothes slowly, by lantern light. Not for approval, not for perfection, just to feel the grain of the cloth, the gentle yield of softened linen, the press of your fingertips into something that's been held and seen. You stack them neatly. Place your palm on top and whisper, "This is the path." Not a straight path, but a folded one, winding, layered, full of care, and wide enough for everyone. The wind tonight is tender. It brushes over your rooftop like a hand smoothing wrinkles from a worn wrap. The stars blink quietly above, soft light settling into every corner of your courtyard. Around you, the laundry lines hang still. No flapping, no snapping, just peace. You move slowly now, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the folding deserves it. There's one last tunic waiting for your hands. It's not special, just an everyday robe, plain weave, linen, once ivory, now softened to the color of desert mist. But it's clean, rinsed twice, smoothed with rosemary oil and patience. You lay it flat. Even after all this time, you still begin with the breath. In, out. Then the center fold, down the spine. The robe almost sighs as you press the crease, as if it knows, yes, it's time to rest. The right sleeve, the left, the long bottom tuck, the gentle square shape, done. You place it on the stack, fourth from the top, exactly where it belongs. Behind you, a few lights flicker from other rooftops, small groups finishing their laundry under moonlight too. You trained some of them, others came on their own, but all of them are folding tonight, quietly, steadily, as if this humble act holds the whole village together. And maybe it does. You sip from a warm cup, faintly spiced with cinnamon and fennel. Your joints ache, your fingertips are pruned, but your heart, completely full. You think back to the first robe you ever scrubbed, to the natron paste disasters, to the folding circle competition, the inspection day, the mysterious one-handed master, the goat who learned nothing and stole everything, to the classroom of hands that shook until they didn't, to the child who folded better than anyone and never needed to brag, to the moment you realized a folded tunic can say, "I love you, I see you, you are home." Historians might never write about this. No great battle, no golden tablet, just rinse, press, fold. But you know better. You've lived 100 lives through laundry. You've found rhythm and reverence and rebellion in soap. You've helped cloth remember where it belongs, and in doing that, you remembered yourself. So now you gather the last stack, place it inside the reed basket, tie the loop, and place it beside your sleeping mat. It smells like clean wind and soft effort. It smells like the kind of pride that doesn't need applause. You dim the lantern, and just before you close your eyes, you whisper to no one in particular. We're all just trying to stay clean in a dusty world. Then you sleep, and somewhere, in the folds of linen and the hush of night, the wind folds with you. Now let your shoulders fall back. Clench your jaw. Soften your eyes behind closed lids. You've folded what needed folding, and what remains can wait. Breathe in slow, like the river lapping at a clay bank. Breathe out slower, like a tunic settling into its final crease. Picture it now, your rooftop courtyard, quiet and warm, cloth whispering on the lines, The soap has been rinsed, the baskets are stacked, the breeze carries nothing urgent, only calm. Your hands are still now, resting on clean sheets, the kind you worked for, the kind that remembers the shape of your fingers, all the noise, the rushing, the worry, it's outside the fold, out there in the world's laundry that doesn't belong to you. You've done enough. More than enough. Tonight, even your thoughts are folded, not pressed too tight, just gently stacked and tucked into corners. Nothing sharp remains. Only softness. Only warmth. Only rest. Let sleep come like the hush of fabric on tile, like the scent of mint and oil rising from worn sleeves, like a lesson remembered not in words, but in the rhythm of your breath. You are safe, you are clean, you are folded, finally into stillness. Good night.